sultry, dulcet tones. Who else do we have? James Smith, welcome back. Not another Heather, you were looking gorgeous tonight. Cedric, good to see you. How was your weekend, man? MPM, welcome to our channel for the first time, I believe. Welcome. Jacques, good to see you back. How's your itch? Please let us know, Jacques. Betty Spaghetti, you were looking lovely tonight. Thank you for taking in the show. Betty, we love you. Bigfoot Rob, always a pleasure to have you here. And we are caught up for right now. So let's get out this final tweet. A good way to support this show, everyone, is by giving us a thumbs up. If you're brand new here, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Also, a good way to keep up with what we are doing is, and to help us out, the Super Chat is open. And you can always do a little shopping at facebook.com/the SOR Vault. We'd love to see you in some of our swag and get you to take some pictures for us of you wearing it. That would be great. Hey, Fabster, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. Always love it when you're here, man. And, we're ready for a good show. Gary Spikes Jr. is here. Hey, Preston, how you doing? We're going to get this thing going in about 10 seconds. So sit back, sit tight. We are talking monsters all night long. Let's do this thing, shall we? Let's have a good show. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you want to take in our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Gary Spikes Jr. is the owner of P3 Productions, and he hosts a podcast called Poorboy's Paranormal Podcast. Based out of Oklahoma, Gary is a military veteran as a U.S. Army Ranger, and he comes from a proud family who've served the United States of America. Gary has also trained people for wilderness survival during his retired years. A dog lover, he is a dog trainer by trade as well, but Gary's love for the unknown has him walking down the paranormal road, searching for every ghost and Sasquatch and anything else in between. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Gary Spikes Jr., I want to start off by saying we love our veterans around here. Thank you so much for your service to the United States and all of us in North America. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you doing this evening?
I am fantastic, my friend, and I am so looking forward to getting into some monster talk with you, because this is what we are going to do all night long, because what the hell? This is what we love. This is what we love, and you're just going to weird us out a little bit, I have a feeling.
Well, you done messed up by opening up the books past Sasquatch. We'll talk all kinds of things.
I hope so.
Oklahoma.
Dude, I hope so. And we're going to get into it nicely. For our audience who may not be familiar with you, Gary, how did you get into the world of monster hunting?
That's an interesting topic. I actually started with the paranormal from a fairly young age. I came from a family of, believe it or not, Pentecostal preachers and Baptist deacons. So here in Oklahoma, if anybody knows anything about the Pentecostal church and that side of belief, they're very proactive. And it kind of led me into a little bit of the demonic side of things, seeing a few things at my early age, and then a grander scheme of things of knowledge. I started studying a little bit, and at an early age had my first paranormal encounter, actually with a demon. and it was documentable, and it just kind of escalated from there. And then when I joined the military, of course, I just was able to move on throughout life and learn even more and start searching even more. And since we got out of the military, we started actually doing paranormal investigation during the military, and got out and just kept it up. It's been a main staple of my life, most of my life.
Growing up with that and having that demonic experience, do you mind telling us about what happened there?
Sure. Pretty much. I mean, I'd have to give you a little bit of my past. My father was military, and he had was going to get shifted overseas, and my mother was not in the best state of mind to raise me, so I got transferred, if you want to say, through the state custody to my grandparents, his parents, and grandfather was a Baptist deacon that had transferred over to the Pentecostal church and became a preacher. And early in life, I actually got to see I was probably 10 years old, got to see a exorcist actually take place in the church that we was attending. And I being that young, it was quite a traumatic experience watching a 80-pound lady lift three 200 plus pound guys off the floor when they're trying to hold her down while they're praying. And she's speaking in crazy languages. But being raised up in that church, we had her speaking in tongues quite a bit. And there goes that clock in the background.
I love it. Couldn't happen at a more freakier time when you're talking about a demon, right?
We have had like anomalies happen while we're doing shows and discussing this kind of stuff. It's crazy. But anyways, watching that and I being at 12 years old, I can't guarantee that I actually seen it happen, but I could have swore I seen a black shadow as they was casting the demon out of her, raise up out of her, and leave through one of the windows of that little church, and asking questions of the pastors and stuff. They told us that it was a demon, leaving the body. So that just started the ball, for the lack of better terms, rolling downhill. I've been infatuated with it ever since. And then as time goes, we started having, doing more, got older and started doing more investigations. It started out as just a bunch of teenagers running around cemeteries and stuff and reading books and stuff like that. And then as we got older, we got a little bit more scientific with it and got a little bit more personable with it and started seeing a lot more evidence because, we're in such a unique area here in Oklahoma, where we didn't become a state until 1906, but we're literally the end of the Trail of Tears. And it also be in the middle of the Bible Belt. So we have a kind of a conglomerate of many different cultures and religions that come here and traumatic pasts,
That is strange, man. I couldn't imagine what it was like as a kid having to go through that and learn about, demons firsthand, watching your grandpa cast a demon away. I mean, that had to be a little bit freaky. But as you moved on and started taking the paranormal a little bit more seriously, it always amazes me how many veterans out there actually take part in paranormal, UFO, or cryptid hunting, man.
Well, I mean, it is. A lot of us do it. I think a lot of it is because once you get over and, when you see combat, you actually, we call it brushing with death. You're doing dark things, you're doing dark deeds. And as we come back, we kind of, depending on what you've done in the military and stuff, we almost feel like we're drawn to that adrenaline rush and drawn to, the way I put it with people is that it helps me reconcile some of the things that I had to do while I was over there. And as I come back and it gives me a chance to maybe help other people. As most vets love to help people. And anytime you're close to, 90% of the people that I talk to that has a close brush with death almost has a fascination with the afterlife.
No kidding. It's something like I never got to serve, and many of our listeners didn't get to serve in that. I never really thought about it that way.
Well, yeah, but it is not even a point of the serve. I mean, anybody, you look at, doing the paranormal investigations, 90% of the time, a lot of your paranormal investigators have had a near-death experience. And that's where they get their initial shock and get their initial, what we call revolution into the world. And it gives you, like I said, that fascination with the other side. And then you start doing research and start learning more. Whether it be they seen a ghost as a kid, once again, you're brushing with death because it's passed over, it's crossed over into the next life. Or they see, Sasquatch, which we'll get into that later. I try to put Sasquatch in one area and paranormal in another. You said one of my nemesis words. I don't do the in our community, in our little group, we don't call it woo. Woo to us is derogatory, and a lot of people it's not. It's just interpretation, but we will get into a lot of that.
I am very much the same way with the word squatch.
Yeah.
I know that 98% of the people who use the word squatch are not serious about being a Sasquatch investigator or a monster hunter or whatever. It's just it's like fingers on a chalkboard, man.
It's funny you say that. Coming from down here in the South, like I am, that's one of the words we use all the time. And I myself, I prefer to use the target species. That's what we've kind of set our standards at. But every once in a while we get silly and call it a booger or call it and that's kind of a funny tone too, or we'll call it talking squatch or something like that. And when I say that, it's not it's a word of endearment for us. I think it's almost a cultural thing down here.
Well, you know what? And I've said this to our audience numerous times. The main reason why I hate the word squatch, hate it, is because when you have a personal encounter with someone who's been doing this a long time, like I did with Dr. John Bindernagel while he was still alive, and I'll never forget the conversation we had in 2015, and we talked for about 45 minutes, and I'll be honest with you, it was one of those conversations that when you're talking to somebody who's famous in your mind and you get so embarrassed that you're talking to that person, or so shy that you just want to leave the conversation even though you want to like talk with them for about another dozen hours. Kind
of like I am right now.
Yeah, I doubt that. But anyways, that's the way I was with him. But yeah, and we were talking questions, and here he was enthralled with my own sightings that I had at that time, where I saw two creatures within 100 feet of me and my friend. And wow. At the end of that conversation, I asked him point blank, I said, "What do you think about the word squatch?" And I said, "Because I hate it." And I'll never forget, he was a tall man, and he kind of stood up straight. He took a deep breath, let out a sigh, and then he said, 70 years of research down the drain because of one word.
Very well put. I never thought of it that way, but especially coming from him. That is one of the most sincere individuals I've ever met. I've met him twice. And just... he's almost got like a grandfatherly figure, perception about the way he does things. You know him far better than I do, I'm sure. But
yeah, I only got to talk. I talked with him twice on the phone. We never were able to connect our schedules to get him on this show before he passed away. But I did get to meet him once, and he was just a lovely gentleman.
Oh God, yeah,
just an incredible gentleman.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so let's do it this way. Let's agree to not do the squatch or not do the woo. The woo word. There we go.
All right, I'll do my best.
I'll say target species.
All right, and I'll say anomaly.
There we go. That'll work.
Anomaly. Anyways, for you getting into Sasquatch, how did that happen?
It's a funny thing. I started out kind of more in the paranormal, but coming from the background that I did with the veteran background, and we was very intimate hunters and fishermen. And at an early age, I did a program called Upward Bound in Colorado, Outward Bound or Upward Bound, depending on how which company you go through. And what they do is they take you and teach you wilderness survival at the age of, early age. You can start it at 12 and go all the way up. They even have adult classes now. And they literally take you and train you for 3 weeks and then give you a canteen, penknife, fishing twine, a hook, a needle, and a map and a compass and tell you you got to cover 25 miles over a period of 5 days throughout in the Rockies. And I didn't have I can't say that I didn't have any experience during that time, but my grandfather had taken me up there. My grandfather retired at an early age of mine. He retired from the government working he was Army, and then worked at Tinker Air Force Base for the Department of Defense. And we was driving, my first, I guess you could say, encounter, if you want to say it, was driving on a logging road on the backside of Black Mesa in Colorado. And we seen something we thought was a bear. And make a long story short, we just pulled around the corner, and the headlights hit it, and it stood up and walked across the logging road in about 3 strides. And it wasn't very tall. We was in a 78 model Ford 3/4 ton pickup with a camper on it. But, it was tall enough that it was as tall as the truck is. And that being a 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive, they call them a high boy. It's pretty tall. But that was just a black shadow. This is the same man that, I seen involved in casting the demons out. And I asked Granddad, I called him Papa. I said, Papa, what was that? And he goes, we're not going to talk about that. And I always knew that he would, when he'd say, we're not going to talk about that, it was something serious. And we literally kept driving late into the night to get away from that area. So I knew that he knew something, and he's a World War II vet himself. And I never thought the man was afraid of anything, that could have been the grandeur, schemes of grandeur. But that opened my mind up into that part of the subject. And of course, everybody from the South, we all watch, Legend of Boggy Creek and everything, and our property is not very far from there, about a 2-hour drive from where the Legend of Boggy Creek happened. But that's always been a part of it for us down here and living on the farm. Grandfather would always shuck it up for like coyotes and stuff like that, but we'd have chickens go missing and all kinds of stuff. And as I got older, which we can get into that later, I found out that a lot of that stuff happening, we honestly can put it on the target species now, some of the behavioral stuff that was happening there.
Incredible. Do you remember your first sighting?
That was it.
Really?
Yeah, that wasn't a Class A sighting. I've only had one Class A, and that was in 2016.
What happened there?
Oh, you really want to go there? That's the one that they probably told you about. My first Class A sighting, I had already been, researching for 20 years and searching for this elusive and very elusive target species, if you want to say that. After I came out of the military, and one of the big things that I specialize in tracking. And I did it in the Army, did it, all my life hunting. And then when I got out, I still train part-time tracking dogs for correctional facilities here in Oklahoma. Everybody knows Oklahoma's got more per capita, more correctional facilities than any other state in the union. But I was got called from a group out of South Texas to do. They wanted me to take a couple of guys into a little expedition in southeastern Oklahoma, and my deal is I've always done it. I take people in, but I never get paid for it. I don't believe in that. I reiterate that for a reason. I don't like making money off of this thing that we call the target species. But took 2 guys in. I'm not going to say their names out of respect for them. Took 2 guys in, and guys. The way I do things is a little bit weird. I don't tell them exactly where we're going. I tell them to meet me somewhere, then I take them there, because southeastern Oklahoma is rampant with hoaxers. Rampant. I mean, there's people down there. Even the locals will do it just to run people out. And we met in the town. Everybody knows the southeastern Oklahoma, the town of Zenobia. And I met with these guys. I'm not going to get into all the details. I'll get into the sighting part of it, but we hiked up. I call it no man's land. If anybody that's ever been in the Sasquatch community, the target species community, Bigfoot community here in Oklahoma, they've probably heard of the siege of Zenobia. We walked in about 3 miles behind their cabins across a ridge down into a valley. We drove in 2 miles and then walked about 3/4 of a mile the rest of the way over there. Set up for camp. We had at the camp had a couple of wood knocks and a little bit of activity, like the little tree snaps and stuff as we came in. And when we set up camp, I'm kind of weird. I don't carry a tent or nothing. I slid my sleeping bag underneath a cedar tree. And I'm real big into survival. I actually teach wilderness survival. Anybody that follows my page can see that. But I knew we was gonna get up early in the morning. This is we didn't even start walking in there until like 4 or 5 o'clock. And this was Christmas Eve in 2016. Was doing it over not Christmas, but Thanksgiving. Was doing it over Thanksgiving break, and I had just slid into my sleeping bag, taken my boots off, and I call it triangulating because it's the only way I know. It's kind of a military thing, but you could literally hear them kind of over in this area, over 20 yards to the north of us. You'd hear a little bit of sound, and then you could hear something, up the hill from us. We're sitting on the western side of about midways up a ridge line on a logging road that kind of opened up a little bit, and that's where we had stopped to camp. And I was on the downward slope, had my feet on the downward slope, which would have been facing my head and feet would have been facing the west. And I was laying there listening to these guys talk. They were still sitting around the campfire, and they was kind of poking fun at me because I'd always sit with my back to the campfire. And they're like, well, turn around and talk to us. I was like, nope, I can hear you just fine, and you can hear me just fine. And one of the guys kind of joking with the other and says, yep, you can tell he's military, he's hardcore and all this. But make a long story short, I had just slid into the sleeping bag, and I heard something coming up the slope below me about probably 20 feet away. And all I heard was just a little bit of like twigs dragging down, and then it would stop. And then something else would, a little bit closer, like a twig would snap. I literally heard something stalking up that ridge line coming up to us. And that got a little bit unnerving because we had already had, like I said, a couple of hoops and had 3 wood knocks that night. And I flat out told the guys, I said, it's time to go. That's unnerving when you hear them making noise everywhere else, and you can literally physically hear something sneaking up on you. And I don't know if the target species knew that I was there because I'd slid underneath that cedar tree, or if he was trying to come up behind that cedar tree, or if he was coming up that ridge to grab me by the foot, but I wasn't going to give him the chance to. And I slid out, we packed up and started heading down the hill. And I'll tell you to this day, and they'll tell you too, we got followed down that hill. They was on either side of us doing wood knocks and stuff. Got down to the bottom of the hill. I do a video about the whole story and give a lot of details, but the key point is the sighting. We got down to the bottom of the hill, and it was like when we got within 150 yards of the cars, they had a car, I had a truck. It's like everything went quiet. It's like these guys knew that's all they wanted to do is get us out of there, and that's the first time I'd experienced that personally. And now sitting and thinking about it, it's so pristine you hear them doing that all the time, and it shows intelligence. And
I want to cut you off right there because we only have about just under 90 seconds left. But I want you to tell our audience what it's like to be stalked by these creatures.
In 90 seconds?
Well, I mean, maybe if you got to carry that over, but I mean, we're down to a minute here. But
it's the most unnerving thing you'll ever feel in your life. It's the scariest thing you'll ever feel in your life.
It really is.
It is. I've been stalked by these guys, and I've been stalked by a mountain lion and by a bear that I know of up north. Not very far from you, actually, Montana. But yeah, it is a very unnerving, especially knowing that there's more of them out there and knowing the capabilities of what they can do. When we get into the woods, we're not the king of the woods, especially at nighttime.
No, that's very true. And like I remember when we got stalked in our area where we now have a gifting site set up for these creatures, we were in trouble. We were in trouble. Yeah. But the beautiful part about it is, and we'll continue this right after the break, it's amazing how they can direct you to the area they want you to leave.
Absolutely.
They are brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that when we come back so people understand a little bit more. I am loving tonight's show with Gary Spikes Jr. from P3 Productions. We're talking Sasquatch right now out of the state of Oklahoma, around North America. Yes, make sure you are always prepared going into the forest. And if the forest goes silent, just get out. It's that safe.
Absolutely.
We'll be back. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, bro, we're clear. So we got,
What kind of time frame?
we got 5 minutes here.
Cool. I'm going to run use the restroom real quick.
Yeah, man. Hey there, gorgeous Larry. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, Cable Guy Matt is here. You know what that means, people? That means you can get your free piece of autographed coaxial cable courtesy of Cable Guy Matt. You cannot buy these in stores. Limit one per order. So you question, how do I get one of these pieces of coaxial cable autographed by Cable Guy Matt? It's real simple. Real simple. You just go to facebook.com/the SOR Vault. You order up some of our t-shirts, or one, or whatever, and we're going to send you that piece of coaxial cable, because nobody should go without. You know what? It's a good fidgeter. You can play with it. You can slap people with it. You can twist it. That's what I do. That's what I do. Cable Guy Matt, cable. Limit one per order. Hey, Bigfoot Rob, how you doing, buddy? Ross, how are you? Bigfoot Rob, I didn't know you were on Poker Stars. We should play sometime, man. I don't know what the heck Alaska's greatest athlete just typed. I'm going to assume that was her son listening into the show. Little greatest athlete. TH, how are you? Welcome back. Golden Lee, always a pleasure to have you here from Toronto. We love you. And who else do we have that's popped on in here? Well, we mentioned Gorgeous Larry. And I think we're caught up. How am I supposed to pronounce it? It's coaxial. 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 Hey, Jeff Steve Garvey, how are you, man? Ross, good to see you. I think we're caught up. Yeah, dude, when we were stalked, my buddy Mark, like when we go into an area here, Todd Hunter, welcome to the show, man. When we go into our area here, and we got a couple areas, 5900, good to see you. We literally, my buddy Mark will be our armed guard. And Mark has, I always laugh at Mark because Mark never believed in Sasquatch. And then shortly after I met him, he's like, this thing doesn't exist. I've been hunting for 35 years. I've been a hunting guide. I've been an animal tracker. It doesn't exist. I said, well, let me take you out to show you a print. And he kneeled down at that print, and he was like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? For about 20 minutes, and now he's a believer. And, hey, the Philip Blair is here, everyone. And so when we were out that day in the forest where we got pushed out, I'll tell you, man, Mark had his rifle drawn, and he knew, I mean, when you've been hunting that long, you know something that's walking at you on 2 feet or 4. You could tell the difference in the sound, in the way it moves. And we say coaxial, but you are correct in coaxial. I love it. Love you, Teresa. Love you. That's why you're beautiful. Cat Chaser. Hey, how you doing, my friend? Thank you for that awesome super chat. I love you. You're always way too kind to me. Always way too kind.
Wow.
What do you got there?
We live?
Well, on YouTube we are.
Oh, okay. I'll wait until private. Just had a guy message me. Says he has solved the Zodiac killer case.
Oh, yeah. He's about the 800th person. Did he break the cipher?
I don't know. Yeah, I always talk to him, though. You know, I never turn down,
Oh, yeah.
correspondence.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting ribbed by the way I say coaxial cable.
That's the way I say it. Well, similar. It depends on how it comes out, but coaxial or coaxial?
Coaxial? Same thing. We got just under a minute here, my friend.
Give me a swig of Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, you go, man. You go. How long were you a ranger for?
8 years.
Wow. That's tough work. How's your knees?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Artificial knee, artificial hip, 7 back surgeries. My feet are all mangled up.
Is that just from jumping?
Yeah.
Wow. They have you jumping out of everything from like helicopters to...
I never jumped out of a helicopter. We rappelled out of the helicopters and speed roped, but I did night halo into water, and jumped out of 4 different kind of airplanes. We C-130s, C-5s. Yeah. We even jumped out of a little, I think it's...
Hold on one sec here, brother. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. What's it like to be tracked by Sasquatch? We're going to find out. Our guest tonight, Gary Spikes Jr., he's a cryptid investigator out of the state of Oklahoma. He's tracking Bigfoot. He's tracking ghosts. He's tracking UFOs. He's tracking everything in between. Gary, welcome back.
Oh, howdy.
All right. Let's get to it here, my friend. Being tracked by Bigfoot, what is it like for you?
Oh, it's unnerving. I mean, it just... what's bad is, the first 1 or 2 times, it's scary, but the more you know their capabilities and the more you do research, and especially if you're a tracker like I am and know it's unnerving to know something's tracking you while you're tracking them.
At any point, did you feel fear?
Oh, yeah. Especially when we get later on to where I had my Class A. But yeah, at the time that we came down, like I was saying, when it came up the hill, at that point, I don't know if it was, as I seen that it was crawling up the hill at us, I don't know if it's so much fear as it was shock, thinking that something had got that close to me without me knowing it. Because I take a little pride in, being able to be in tune with the area that I'm around. But when we was coming down the hill, when we knew that they was consciously following us, making little subtle noises and stuff like that. And one of the guys swears that he seen eye shine as we was coming down in front of us. What I did is I put one guy in front with a real bright spotlight. I was in the back with a headlamp, and then we had the guy in the middle with just a regular flashlight. But as we was coming down, it got unnerving. I mean, knowing that these things are following you, and it was almost like a interactive. It's like they was watching us and we was watching them as we was coming down. And it's like you were saying earlier before we got off the air about how they heard you. They have a tendency to push you the direction you want to. It just shows you that we are not the master of the woods.
And you're exactly right, because I know when my buddy Merle and Mark and myself got pushed out of the area, we knew there were 2 of them. And in between the directions that they were coming, there was the trail. Now, I don't know this, by going by rumor of what people say, that they usually have 3 set up to triangulate you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know if we would have went up one trail, we probably would have been pushed back by those other ones, and then they would have recalculated. But what they do is pretty militaristic, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's one thing that, I've had a lot of people kind of ridicule me for, because when I step into an area to do research, and when I'm doing research, with having the skill sets that I have with the teaching the survival and doing the tactical evasion and sears and stuff, search and rescue and stuff like that, I put myself into that mind frame. So I'm like, if I was surviving or if I was wanting to get out of here or go somewhere or stay hidden, what would I do? And that's how we find a lot of our sign. Is we put ourselves in that mindset, and they are very tactical. My wife could come in here and tell you about a story about them, 3 of them circling our tent. She was a skeptic, hardcore skeptic until that night. Now she says she's not a believer, she's a knower. But they circled our tent for about 4 hours and threw little stupid stuff like snapping twigs, and you could hear one stomp every now and then, just a little, light stomp, and then they was throwing acorns at her tent. It just. She said she'd never go back down there again. But
yeah. See, that's something that I haven't had happen yet. I haven't had anything. No, correct me wrong. I was going to say I hadn't had anything thrown at us. But last year we were at one of our gifting sites. It was just my buddy Mike and I. And nothing happened. There was no movement at the gifting site. Nothing. And we're standing right in front of my truck, and, we'll give it a couple of minutes, and then we'll go, because you always try to listen, and that area is pretty silent. And all of a sudden, there was like a rock-on-rock cling, like somebody threw a rock, it hit the rock in front of us, and literally, we were like 2 seconds away from going into our truck to drive away, and all of a sudden, this rock comes throwing. Now, we didn't see the rock, we heard it.
Oh, wow.
Right in front of the truck, and our backs were to it. So we're like, okay, well, which direction did this come from? And that was the first time I had something thrown at us. But, when you have these creatures around you, you feel very, very small. You feel like you're a child being scolded by your parents when you're like 3, 4 years old and your parents look massive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's weird how that works, man.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think they're doing it? Do you think they're doing it to protect their territory? Do you think they're triangulating us out of the area because they have little ones or family in the area? What's your thoughts?
I think it could be any number of things. I think that, if you think about it, animals are going to do anything they can. It's not a matter of sociological patterns with them. It's a matter of survival. So they'll do anything that they can. It could be that you're in a territory, maybe a breeding territory, or there could be young, or you could be, we hear so many stories of people walking up on them feeding, in a hunting, and they get kind of aggressive like that. Or it could even be just a territorial issue. It could be a dominance thing. We're not for sure, but there are so many stories of them triangulating you around. I think it's just the way that they do things. I honestly think that they do it all the time because they're ultimately, I believe, in my personal opinion, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but when I say this, I believe that ultimately it comes down to survival. They know that in the past, anytime they see one of us, if one of us get hurt or one of us something happens, that they end up on the short end of the stick. There's more people coming in, usually with guns and cameras, so they just kind of shoo us away, if they can.
Do you think before we get back to your encounter, do you think they're a solitary creature that likes to be left? But what I'm saying is have their solitary packs, or do you think that they are a creature that just doesn't want to be bothered? Because you know what? We don't see cougars often. I've been living up in the north here for a couple of years, and I've only ever seen 2 cougars. But we know they're out there. Bears, I haven't seen a bear in over a year.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're in British Columbia?
Yeah.
Wow. I seen a bear last year.
But, last year we were out in the forest, but like around my house, I haven't seen a bear in well over a year.
Yeah.
Out in the forest I have.
Well, one thing that I have this discussion with you guys up in the Northwest all the time. Y'all have a lot more area up there. So even in your question, the Sasquatch up there, sorry, I call them their native tongue. Can I do the Sasquatch or is it just
Sasquatch is good.
Okay, I do say that a lot because
That's good.
of being Native American. But up there, they have a lot more area to roam. Down here in Oklahoma and North Texas and South Texas, Louisiana, there's a lot more people down here, so they don't have as much area. So we're encroaching on them, and they have a tendency to. I truly believe that they're a little bit more ornery down here than they are up there. They have to push back a little bit more aggressively. But in what you were saying about them I think they run in family pods, and there could be like a rogue male every now and then, like a juvenile male gets kicked out of a family or something. But I believe that they're truly just they're a curious creature, but I think that they just want to be left alone.
And that makes sense. So let's get back to your story here, where you had your Class A sighting. What happened there?
I think it was down the hill, and we had made it down the hill, and they'd stopped 150 yards up. We got down the hill, and by this time it's probably 2 or 3 in the morning. It was late at night. For some reason at that time I had taken, I think it was because of my wrist and neck damage, I had taken, like we was talking about before, from not wearing a watch anymore. I wear a watch 24/7. But it was late at night, early morning, so probably 2 or 3 in the morning. We got down the hill, and the two guys that I was with, I'll say their first names, Jeff and Brad. Jeff and I remember Jeff more than I do the other guy, because Jeff was the one that we have been talking since then. But they said they wanted to stay there that night and then turn around and go back up the hill to try to find some evidence. And I was not under the assumption that I wanted to. I'm a true believer that if them things didn't want us down there that night, they wasn't going to want us up there the next morning. But me with my military background and stuff, I'm not going to let them go back up there by themselves. So in saying that, they set their tent back up. I just slid into the seat of my truck. I'm 5'10", 5'11", on a good day, depending on how much I weigh at that time. If I weigh a little more, I might be a little shorter, But 88 Chevy 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive, a bench seat. I was sleeping the prone in the on my side. What do you call it? Fetal position. So I just slept in my truck. And I'd slid into the truck, and it was pretty chilly, so I'd started up the truck a little bit and let it warmed up and then fell asleep. Sometime during later, something woke me up. I don't know if the truck moved or if there was a noise or whatever. When I'm in the woods, I sleep with my glasses on, or I sleep with them tucked into right in front of my face. And I notice you wear glasses. You're probably the same thing I do. It's subconscious. You put your glasses on as soon as you wake up. But at that time, I had them on, and kind of a couple of things. I was carrying a firearm. I was carrying a 45, and had my flashlight and stuff. But I was sleeping with my feet towards the passenger door, my head towards the driver's side door, so the steering wheel was right in front of me. Truck was an automatic, and the truck had any of you guys or folks that drove them old, the old trucks, the old Native American blanket seat covers that has the pockets along the front of them. That's yes. What I had in. I had my pistol stuck in that pocket, but the key point for that is the reason I'm getting to that. Something woke me up, and first thing I did is look. With my training and background, you don't jerk awake and start jerking your head around. You open your eyes slowly and start looking around. Well, the first thing I did was, of course, I'm looking at the steering wheel. I look up to the windshield, and the sun was coming from the east. My truck was facing the south. The truck was coming, had already come up a little bit, but had the mountains that we had just come down, that ridge line. You could see the sun coming up behind it. But anyways, as I looked up, I seen a dark shadow out the front corner of the windshield towards the driver's side door. So instinctively, I'm following it over, and then in the driver's side glass is a face about 6 inches from the glass looking at me. And it was so close to the glass that when it was breathing, it was kind of fogging up the glass a little bit. And I don't know how long I laid there looking at it. I don't know how long it stood there looking at me. But I distinctly remember that its shoulder was that dark mass I seen in the windshield. And then I kind of turned my head a little bit and looked more, and I seen him right above me. And then I could see his right shoulder out the back glass of that single cab pickup.
Oh, dude.
Uh, at that time, I lost all control of myself. I screamed like a little girl, I'm sure, more than like a crazed and raged. Not saying that girls scream kind of crazy, but I'm sure it's pretty high pitched. I found out later that I had literally defecated myself because of the fear or whatever, the shock.
Yeah.
But I laid there and I screamed, and when I screamed, I reached forward, and I guess my training finally kicked in. I reached forward, and this is what's so funny, Dave, is as I reached forward, and I never pulled my eyes off of this thing, you know. I reached forward and I started to grab for the pistol, and I swear as I was pulling that pistol, it was like the thing looked at me and seen me pulling the pistol, and it stood straight up and took 3 strides to the edge of the truck where the wood line, I had my truck backed up to the wood line, not completely to it. We measured that part out later. It took 3 strides and crashed through the brush. And
It knew.
It knew. Oh yeah, it knew. It knew predominantly. I can describe the face. I can describe the biggest thing that I seen right off the bat is we knew. Well, let me finish that part of the story, and then I'll come back to it. When it did that, I literally slid up into the seat, fired that truck up. I'm a mechanic. That truck had a 383 stroker in it that my wife takes a lot of pride in, about 460 horse, loud pipes, 4-wheel drive. I spun. This is the thing that got me is I totally lost all cognitive. I don't know what it was. I spun out of there. I wasn't thinking about them guys that was there, and it bugs me to this day that I left them there. You know, I left out the country. I did not come back to a more of a cognitive thought until I got to Clayton, Oklahoma, which is about almost 20 miles away. And I pulled up in their all night gas station and sat there for a few minutes, just shaking and crying. And, I called the one person that I knew I could, you know, what do? You call Dad, you know, and I called Dad and I told him what's happening. He says, first thing, get off the phone with me and try to get a hold of them guys. So I called Jeff, and he says, dude, what happened? You just lit out of here. You slung gravel all over our tent and everything else. And I said, dude, I had a family emergency. Are y'all okay? He goes, yeah, we're leaving too. He goes, there's no sense if you're not going to take us up there, we're leaving. And by this time the sun had come up. It was probably, 6:30. I make a long story short, got my head about me. My dad says, come home. Now, you got to understand, I lived in central Oklahoma. Our farm where my dad lives is halfway in between my home and that Honobia area. So I drove about an hour to his house, sat there with him, got cleaned up, which we had found out that I defecated myself. And I got to keep that point up. And people ask me, why do you say that all the time? And for the simple fact that these folks that says they can have a close encounter with these things, no. I mean, I was one of the best, supposedly trained, a combat vet. I lost every cognitive thought. When people tell me, well, you had a camera, or they had a camera, why couldn't they take a picture? That's the last thing you're thinking about. But make a long story short,
thank you for saying that, though, because I have said the same thing. Like when Samantha Mowat and I had our extraterrestrial encounter in the forest on April 15th, 2014, I have had so many people, well, where was your iPhone? Why didn't you take a video? Why didn't you take a picture? When you see something that you cannot comprehend, something that's not supposed to be real, and it is right in front of you, you do lose absolutely everything. You lose your ability to think properly.
You do. You lose all cognitive. Folks, but people don't, and I'll get back to that. People don't understand how this affects you. I mean, we're taught that these things don't exist, I think, for a reason. This thing, when we went back, I backed my truck. You very easily could tell because I slung, I had left gravel skid marks from where I took out. And we backed the truck back up there, and we measured. We knew that the height of the truck, the height of the top of the truck was 6'1" because I had to put steps on it for my wife to get in it. The window on those 88 Chevys is 37 inches from the outer door frame, on the back side to the front. When this thing stood up, The top of the truck hit it about below the nipples, right at the xiphoid process. So we figured he was at least 9 feet tall. But the biggest thing for me was the width of the shoulders. Them shoulders was 4.5 to 5 feet tall. I mean, wide, sorry. The girth of this thing is just, it's unfathomable. People do not understand until you see one.
Mm-hmm. Did he have a neck?
The way he was hunched down, all I seen was the trapeze.
Yeah.
Coming from like here. I mean, he was just so massive, the trapezoids. I didn't see a lot of hair, and that could have been partially from the hair because he had what little light there was to his back. I'll have to send you, I worked with a guy out of England for 3 weeks and had him do a rendering of it. Then I got with a fella you might know of, Larry Batson.
No, I've never heard of him.
He's an artist and big into animals. I worked with him and he drew a rendering of it. But the biggest thing was the mass. And another thing that I seen real well is the eyes and the nose and the mouth because his face was so close. You could have stuck a cantaloupe in that thing's mouth if he was to open it up.
Did it look more ape-like or more human-like?
It didn't have the forehead like an ape, but the face, the nose was real broad and hooded, and the jaw set and everything was more ape-like, yeah.
Yeah. See, when I had my close encounter where it was about 75 feet in front of me, the one thing that I noticed, I never got a facial feature. I only got a right profile from about the waist up, and then as it walked away, I got the back profile. But I will never forget how it just went from these massive, massive shoulders to this big, large head that kind of triangulates down onto the shoulders to a point on top. You know,
see, I didn't get a chance to see the point at the angle because I was below him looking up at him. You know, he was kind of squatted down, hunkered down looking at me. And then when he got up and walked away, of course, he was going, I was laying down behind the seat. I had the seat in the cab in the way. But definitely the mass and the neck, you're right. And
the weird part about it is you have no idea how long he was actually watching.
That's it. People don't understand. He could have been sitting there. There's a whole big deal to this. I mean, this happened in 2016, and I never went back there until 2019, I'm sorry, with Scott Carpenter and Randy Arrington from Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. And we went back in there. And even after that, uncontrollable tears when I pulled up on that site. It just, and what was so funny is without knowing, when I pulled up on that site, I didn't tell them where it was until we got there. Randy Arrington looked at me and says, "It's so funny you say that because I had a sighting 70 yards down this ridge when I was sitting in the tree stand, and I've got audio." He's big into the audio and stuff. So that confirmed to me, without him knowing, that they was in the area. Folks, this is 3 miles from the Siege of Zenobia area. It's crazy. But the mouth was a big deal to me, and like you said it, man. I don't know how long he'd been laying there. I don't know if, and I think about things. He could have been the one that was crawling up the ridgeline coming at me.
Do you think it was about, I know you were scared, as we got about 90 seconds left before we take a break here. I know you were scared. That is just human nature.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you were ready to defend yourself if you had to. But at any time, the way I look at it, this creature could have ripped those doors open.
Oh, yeah.
He could have smashed through that window.
Do
you think he was sizing you up or just investigating you?
I honestly, after analyzing it, going through some therapeutic stuff with, we was talking about him earlier, Leon Thompson from there in British Columbia, and another fellow by the name of Steve Anderson, Curious Cryptid out of Washington. And we sit down and really analyze the situation. I don't think he was being aggressive. When I reached for the pistol, he never showed his teeth. The only expression he showed was look, and gone. There was I don't think there was any aggression there. And like you said, he could have very easily ripped me out of that truck, folded me up, and shoved me up that tailpipe, and I couldn't have done nothing about it. Even if I'd have shot him, it might have killed him eventually. But as big and as massive as that is, those 11.45 caliber rounds, he would have still got me.
They'd have been bouncing off of him.
And they might have punctured him, but he was still going to get me. I mean, folks, people don't understand. These guys can grab you by the head with 2 fingers and go crunch like we do a pop can.
You got that right. We're going to find out what you think Sasquatch is when we come back. Gary, thank you so much for sharing that incredible, incredible close encounter. I think all of us have goosebumps over listening to that story. I know my jaw dropped on it. I'm sure many of our listeners did as well. We are going to talk more Sasquatch, and then we'll get into other monsters of paranormal a little bit later on with our guest tonight from P3 Productions. We have Gary Spikes Jr., Monsters of Oklahoma. We're going to continue this on when we come back after the break here on Spaced Out Radio. Gary, I just got to run my dogs outside. I know there's some questions in the chat room. Save them for the air, and I'll ask them on the air because Dirt Road has a pretty good question. Okay. And I want to start off with that when we come back. But I'll be right back, okay?
Sure.
To the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at Kajans.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
All right. I am back. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. 162 people watching. Thank you so much. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever you feel we deserve. And, of course, Super Chat is open if you want to support us like Cat Chaser did. Thank you so much, Cat Chaser, for the Super Chat. We really do appreciate it. And thank you so much. And my chat just jumped here. Now I'm going to have to find there. It's down a little bit here. We've got about just under 1 minute, Gary.
Okay.
Where'd that question go?
Wow, I'm blowing up tonight. You're going to make a celebrity out of me.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. Because I'm not that popular, but, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get with you and hear your account one of these days, because I'm all about taking reports and all about the target species.
We can't get into the area right now due to the snow, but about a month from now, we should be able to get close. Hold on 1 second here, my friend. We're going to come back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. And, of course, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Catabothron. Catabothron is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with our good friend Gary Spikes Jr., Bigfoot researcher, paranormal researcher, UFO researcher, monster researcher, owner of P3 Productions. This guy wears a lot of hats. But we love you, Gary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I'm having a blast.
Me too, man. That story that you shared in the last hour, and people just joining us, you missed one hell of a Bigfoot story on Gary's personal experience. Thank you so much for sharing that. You'll have to go back into the archives on YouTube to check it on out at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. It was one of the best I've ever heard on this show, to be absolutely blunt. I want to start off this hour with a question from Dirt Road, who is asking, Gary, do you wish you approached that sighting differently now? And if so, how would you have?
Oh, very good question. I have to wonder, approached, is he talking about my beliefs in that sighting and my retrospect of that sighting, or a physical approach of what
I'll give you an example, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When I had my alien encounter with Samantha Mowat, I stood there frozen. They telepathically told Samantha they invited us over to say hello. Said they were not going to take us, not here to harm us. And I stopped Samantha from going. And looking back on that situation, knowing what I know now, I would have walked over there.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so how would you have held that, or what would you have done differently knowing what you know now comparatively to 5 years ago when this happened?
Not grab for the pistol. Very easily. I mean, I would have not grabbed for the pistol. I'm still not going to say that I'm going to go out there and actively, if I get that close to another one, communicate with it. These things have the potential to be very dangerous. I don't think that it's in all of them's nature. I think there's a few of them that could be dangerous. But I think that because there's always an anomaly, and look at humans. There's mean humans and nice humans, but I don't think that he was being aggressive. He very well could have been. If I would have threatened him or his family, he'd probably rip me in two. I'll be brutally honest. I don't believe in the friendly forest people that I've seen yet. I've seen too much evidence with tracking them and what behavioral patterns were gleaming from the tracking that they are more practical, for lack of better terms, a more practical entity. They eat, they sleep, they interact with each other in a practical sense. It's almost like they walk in between human and animalistic. They have a different set of sociological patterns than we do.
Okay, so going through that, and I understand the fear. Okay, you have to always be prepared for the worst. I do get that. Do you ever think what would have happened if the door opened?
I don't even want to think about that. Dude, you're gonna give me nightmares. I mean, you think about it. You've had a sighting, and I can definitely tell that you've had a pretty good sighting. If this door opened, I would have been a goner. If he would have went as far to open that door, I see how you're doing it. If he'd went as far as to open that door, he was opening that door for a reason.
Were your doors unlocked?
Honestly, don't remember. Knowing me, they probably was.
I just could not imagine.
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. And you said something earlier. I was on to say, he's talking about people that couldn't be there. I don't want to be there. What's bad is I don't want to have that experience again, but I'm going to have to see another one of these things to get some closure on the matter. And that's the reason I still research today. It obsesses me. I mean, every day now, we've even stepped away from more the paranormal's kind of picking back up for us, but we've strictly been the target species for the last 5 years. Strictly target species. And I'm talking every other weekend I'm down in that area.
Knowing the fear that you felt having this creature inches away, and I think that's safe to say. It was inches away. You're a brave man. You're a veteran. You're a combat veteran, U.S. Army Ranger. I mean, you have everything that is supposed to say bravery. You have everything trained in you that is supposed to kill or be killed. And I use that term very politely, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what was going through your mind when this happened. Yes, we know what happened. You explained it in detail, but in your mind, if you can, please explain the human side of this human fear that you had while looking at this creature.
At that time, honestly, I don't remember. Because what folks don't understand is when you get gripped with a certain amount of fear, all cognitive thought stops. And with people like me and other veterans, when that fear kicks in and you lose that cognitive thought, your training kicks in. But later, when I retrospect back on that, I know there was an extreme amount of fear because I could call my wife in here and she would tell you that not 3 weeks later, she was snoring in the bed and I shoved her completely out of the bed and grabbed a pistol from my side of the bed and jumped up because I thought that snoring could have been him growling. The amount of fear that was there, I mean, even to this day, we was literally just before this show, when you called me earlier, we was talking about it. I literally have to sleep outdoors or with my windows and curtains closed because the idea of something stepping up into a window and looking in the window just takes me to a whole different level. That fear is a primal fear. I mean, you can't. It's kind of hard to describe. It's folks, I have literally faced down a charging brown bear and put a bullet in him because I love to hunt. I love to hunt bear. That's one of my things that I love to do. And I'm sorry if that offends people, but that's just part of my culture. I've done things in my life that people make movies about. And I'm not saying that I'm a bad boy because I'm not. There's a lot of guys out there doing it even right now. Our guys overseas are some of the best trained in the world. But that fear that when I seen this thing, that fear supersedes everybody being airborne. If you ever jumped out of an airplane, that first jump is your spookiest. Nothing like this. It goes beyond even religion. I will say this, and I'm on a hush. That sighting made me change my religion. Christianity at that time, the way in all my teaching, doesn't acknowledge Sasquatch. I mean, there's certain people that does, but as a whole, Christianity does not acknowledge Sasquatch. I have converted to Buddhism because the Buddhism acknowledged the target species. It's a daily thing with them guys.
If you were this afraid of this creature, and I mean that with all due respect, not trying to downplay you here, so please. If you are that afraid of this creature, why keep going after it?
I have to go back to get closure. I have to go back to face my fears. Is the way I was raised. I mean, if you go out in the woods with me now, you can ask any of my research partners. Mr. Nate Rudd is following us now. He knows me well enough. If you go, I get the shakes when I know they're around. I don't lock up, but I've got a healthy respect for these entities, if you want to call it. Why I go back? I'm obsessed. I have to go back because I went through the whole thing. Did I actually see it? Well, we proved that by the physical evidence that was there. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing, it wasn't from a lack of sleep. It wasn't from anything like that. I physically seen what I seen. I have a hard time now, with, I've got an open mind about infrasound and about, the mind speak and all that. And this is where I get at, and I haven't said this, but in private, but I'll say it here. If these things was non-aggressive and could mind speak, if there's really spiritual, like some people say they are, why would he have not have chose to say, hey, everything will be okay?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah.
Regarding that, I really do. I mean, I can feel the emotion in your voice and the way you are describing this. I mean, do you feel you have some sort of PTSD over it?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there ain't no doubt. I mean, I was dealing with PTSD even before, from fighting the battles that I did. And from that, yeah, I mean, we as veterans, so many of us are not treated the way we should be medically when we come back. I'm one of the lucky few that have found alternate means, and mine is I have a service dog. that I was able to train myself and get him certified. And that's what helps me. And he is also my research partner. And I'm going to tell you flat out, I told y'all I didn't go back until 2019. I had not been back in the woods. This is somebody that I used to literally teach and go into the wilderness with nothing but a knife and a sleeping bag by myself for weeks at a time. I teach wilderness survival, but since then I've never been back in the woods by myself until 2 months ago. And the only reason I was able to do that is because of going through this encounter over and over with guys like you and with guys like Leon Thomas and Steve Anderson and my other, research, Nate Rudd. And they literally say the same thing that you did. Do you really think that he was that aggressive? If he was really going to be aggressive, he could have snatched you out of there while you was asleep. You would have never woke up. That's the only way I've been able to go back out in the woods by myself. And I'm telling you, it was a hairy situation. I went to the one place that I knew I was safe, and that's my family farm. But even getting out there then, you don't sleep at night hardly. You're like your head's on a swivel,
I'm going to ask you something. It may be a weird question, okay? So answer it the best you can, and if you don't have an answer for it, that's great too. All right? Many people who have had encounters, they can pick up on the energy after that. When it's around, what's around, who's around. Do you feel that if you went back to that spot that you could pick up its energy?
That's kind of a double-edged sword with me. I honestly look at it in a more practical view. Once you see one of these, it obsesses you, so you start looking more, so you start finding more signs, so you start learning more sign. I know which direction you're leaning towards this. I honestly don't know. I can't answer that question directly, but what I can answer is since then, I've learned by talking to guys and going out in the field with guys that I've learned their behavioral and what to look for, so I'm finding more since then. But I've taken so many reports of people that, like, once they have their first sighting, it's like they have more. It's almost like an escalated. So I'm not going to deny that couldn't happen. I'm not going to deny at all that maybe if I got back out in that area, I refuse to go back into that area by myself.
No, I understand that. But like with a lot of people who have ET contact, all right, they will say that they know when it's coming around. They know when it's going to happen. They just get this feeling. So even, and I know you've kind of stayed away from that one spot, but when you go to other spots in the forest, do you feel different now? How have you changed in the way your perception works?
I would agree that there is a spiritual side of this. My perception has changed because my levels on all level, even spiritual levels, go peak when I step into the woods. I listen to the woods. I feel the hum of the land. I feel, because it's such a spiritual thing for me and my little group of we call ourselves primitives, for what it is. And you build, even the more you're in the woods, and that too, it takes you a couple hours even to get your ears in tune when you get back in the woods. But I truly believe that these things, it's almost like a comfort level. Would that be the way to saying it? It's almost like these things know that you've had an encounter. So maybe that you've changed, or maybe there is an energy overlay there, because when we go into the woods now, since I had the encounter, it's like we almost have more encounters. I've never had another Class A. I've had a lot of audio anomalies and stuff like that. And since then we've had the stuff thrown at us and stuff. But I could say that there might be something there. I mean, there very well could be.
And I'm trying to hide the W word here, away from you. But I'm someone who believes, and I have no problem saying this. I am someone who believes that this creature does have some sort of supernatural type ability. And the only reason why I say that is a few days after my sighting of the two, 4 of us got roared at from 50 yards behind my friend's house.
Almost like it followed you then.
It followed us. But right before the roar, there was this pixelation that was standing from the ground up to about 8-10 feet beside my friend's cherry tree. You know, like little square boxes.
Like the Predator effect.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, like 30 seconds later, we got roared at.
Well, I'm gonna say this to say that. You're looking at a fella that literally lived for 3 years on the north side of the ridge of Skinwalker Ridge in Utah. That's a whole nother part of the show. I believe in all things paranormal. I have yet to experience with Sasquatch. I've went with a lot of folks that, for the lack of better terms, are more on the spiritual side. We won't say the W word. Mm-hmm. And they experience mind speak. They experience things, and I'm looking around and looking with a more practical sense. Maybe it's because I've closed myself off to it. But I'm not going to deny theirs. But I have not seen it yet. The thing that I seen was very physical. Every time I go into the woods, it's very physical. I see tracks. When people say they don't see any more sign, I see sign because I have a little bit different skill set. Plus, I have a $10,000 dog that's got a nose that'll sniff out anything. And that's a whole another part of it too. But I am not going to deny you might be the one that I need. I put an open challenge out every show. Not in a challenge and not in a debate. I want to find people that have had spiritual experiences with the target species and do a practical analysis, a practical discussion about what did you experience, how did you experience, what was, what exactly did you. The only way we're going to make this crossover is to do that without competition. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I fully agree. And if you do that panel, I want to sit with you on that.
Oh, you're welcome to it. You're welcome.
I would be honored to sit on that panel because I do have questions. I don't want to sit here and say that this creature is full of magic because I really don't know what it is. I could tell you the way I'm leaning, and that is I do lean and do believe that there is something supernatural to it. What it is, I have no idea. I have no idea at all, Gary. But the one thing I do know is we got about 2.5 minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour, is there is a lot of occurrences that happen to people, to indigenous people.
Absolutely.
That we are absolutely throwing that information in the garbage because we all want to be all sciencey. You know what I'm saying? We all want to be that scientist. We all want to do all this scientific stuff. But we are forgetting the major story. We are forgetting what this creature is about and what it may be about. And until we can disprove it, not by opinion, but by actual scientific fact, then we cannot deny that it's happening. That's my only point on this.
Well, and it's a great point. I mean, and that is a prime point in the fact that, and I've got a way of explaining it. When we can't explain something, humans as nature, in a sociological standpoint, try to fill in the gaps with spiritualism. We've been doing it throughout society. I mean, throughout the history of society. But there is a metaphysical aspect to these guys that we can't explain. Call it, we're studying infrasound. We're studying electromagnetic fields. I think they're hypersensitive myself. I think that they can literally feel ley lines and they are attracted to them and such. Any natural animal, my dog, can feel electromagnetic anomalies. We as humans clutter our brain with this right here called technology to the point that we, even the ancient humans, you mentioned it right, the primitives, the First Nations, there's more to that than what people understand. We as humans in the sociological in our brain with technology have muddled that side of us. Each human has a fight or flight or a sixth sense, if you want to say it for that note. I I've seen too many camera anomalies to say that maybe these things, and we discuss this stuff all the time, that maybe the infrasound can affect electromagnetic, or maybe they can do something electromagnetic. Myself, the way these things move is uncanny. I don't like to say that they're supernatural, but they're so natural that they're super human or super,
And I would agree with that. We just don't know. The other point on that as we go to break here, photographs, video. We're not all that bad of photographers or videographers, yet it's always blurry.
Absolutely.
We'll get into that and more. I want to hear this Skinwalker story, man. We're going to get into that. Gary Spikes Jr. is our guest tonight, former U.S. Army Ranger, now chasing down monsters in the state of Oklahoma. Bigfoot talk, Skinwalker talk, paranormal talk. We got it all tonight on Spaced Out Radio.
I didn't know about it until I moved away.
Well, what was that? I had your microphone down. I'm sorry.
Oh, that Skinwalker Ranch. I didn't know that all that stuff was there and happening there until after I left. But we had a lot of crazy stuff happen up there in the Unica Basin. That's where I was telling you I had the cougar. Yeah. I had a cougar following me around that Unica Basin. But I lived there at Fort Duchesne, right on the north side of that ridge, for 3.5 years after I got out of the military.
I had this kid in my office on Saturday. And I was working with him, one client. I shouldn't call him a kid. He was like 28 years old, 27 years old. And we were talking, his wife was there, and I didn't know her, but I knew her dad. And her dad and I used to talk aliens all the time in his airsoft store here in town. And so anyways, the young guy says to me, her husband says to me, he's like, I'm into Bigfoot. I know where all the sightings are. And then he says to me, just out of the blue, he goes, do you know that we have dogman sightings around here? I'm like, yes, I do. And when I'm at my daytime job, I don't talk a lot about my radio side. And he's like, yes, I do. And I'm like, wow. I said, last one I heard was a couple of years ago, just up on the mountain. He's like, no way, that close? I'm like, yeah, that close, man. Oh, yeah.
I'm just getting into, I'm having a hard enough time dealing with the Sasquatch thing. And I'm just getting into the dogman because I've got a couple of friends that's had some good Class A sightings of dogman and very creditable guys, And I'm like, guys, I'm having a hard enough time dealing with seeing a Bigfoot. I don't want to see a dogman.
You know what? I will say this. I have not seen a dogman, Gary, but getting back to that whole energy thing, I was out cutting firewood. I had my little guy. He was about 3 years old. And it was my partner and I, and we were out in the forest. We took this logging road, and the energy was stuff that I had never, ever felt before. On that road, it felt evil, it felt dark, it felt angry. And so my partner says, let's just get out of here. I don't want to be here. Let me, if you
go ahead.
So I walk out in the forest, and I'm pretty. I try to be pretty spiritual. Okay, like when I go into the forest to cut trees, I will literally say to the forest animals, like, don't come in here. I'm taking the dead ones. I am not taking the live trees.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing here is I'm making you new paths, and I am saving helping save this part of the forest from any forest fires. So I put that out there very loud, okay? And then I fire up my chainsaws to kind of let the animals know that I'm working there. But on this day, I brought when I said that, I get out of my truck, I say that, and the energy comes right down, but it feels like you're being watched. Like something was watching every move. And like I said, I've been around Sasquatch, dude. maybe it was a rogue Sasquatch or not. It didn't feel like it, if that makes sense.
It's probably something else.
Exactly. Well, so we finish up. I take down 2 trees there, cut them up, throw them in the back. I said, thank you. We're going down the road. We get down to the other part of the road, probably drive another 3/4 of a mile down this logging road, get out of the truck, and dude, the energy is even thicker. And my partner looks at me and I look at her and I'm like, we're out of here. We're out of here. Didn't even get the chainsaw out. It was just like, it was time to go. Like we had worn out our welcome.
Yeah.
And it was time to go. And like even talking about that story right now, like I feel sick to my stomach about it, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, you know, dealing with the things that we've dealt with, you know, over time. And that's where, and don't ever think that I don't believe that Sasquatch cannot be spiritual or not have energy. I totally believe that they could. I've got a very practical thing about, you know, like he was talking about here in Oklahoma, there's lots of burial grounds, Native American burial grounds and stuff. And me and my wife will be walking through the woods and we'll look at each other and say, nope, and turn around and go the other way.
Absolutely. And you have to trust that feeling.
Yes.
You have to.
Okay.
Well, give me 1 second here. Only got 15 seconds. Thank you so much, Colin Douglas and Cat Chaser, for the awesome super chats. It's a great way to support the show that we do here on a nightly basis. Here we go with the second half of the show starting right now. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, especially you, Big Nate Foot in Spokane. Make sure Corey isn't watching the Hallmark Channel when we're talking monsters here. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on talking Bigfoot. Gary Spikes Jr. from Oklahoma, P3 Productions, is here, and I'll tell you, this is just a power show tonight of serious monster talk. Gary, thank you so much. You're making me look good here tonight, my friend. Serious. You know? But I want to talk Bigfoot just a little bit more here, and then I want to kind of switch gears because we only have you for about another hour here, if that.
Yeah.
Photographs, videos. As in the previous half hour where we were kind of talking about what this creature is, I don't believe that everybody on the planet, the minute they see a monster, if we could call it that, because that's what it is in layman's terms, I don't think that everybody's a bad photographer. I don't think that everybody's a bad videographer. Yet these creatures, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, fairies, aliens, whatever it may be, we're always blurry. We're always shaky. Shaky, you can understand because of fear. Mm-hmm. But the creature always seems blurry. What do you think about that?
A trail camera doesn't shake.
What's that?
A trail camera does not shake.
Neither does a tripod.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is going on? Have you looked into that?
We're doing an ongoing study of different, there's so many different theories and everything on that. I myself think that with spiritual anomalies, that they literally alter the energy around them, because if they are on the other side, as we'd like to say, they have to take a massive amount of energy out of there. That's where you have battery draining and lights dimming and the camera anomalies there. We don't know. Once again, I have never experienced it with Sasquatch, with the energy fluctuations. I've got very good friends that have. I've never experienced that. but we also don't know what infrasound can do. We do know that lions, tigers, elephants, even giraffes use infrasound. And we're even taking it as far as some of the clicking noises that we're hearing at night, we think might be the target species doing a clicking noise, maybe to be able to traverse at night better, almost like a sonar thing. But something that massive, is going to be able to do infrasound. And there are studies. There's some pretty pragmatic studies. I've got about 16 papers here I've got to read through about infrasound actually messing with the metabolism of somebody. Now, with the cameras, I'm not going to put myself out there to say that infrasound's messing with the cameras. But if these things can do infrasound, we don't know what else they can do. They might be able to manipulate energy. I mean, I've studied martial arts most of my life. I've spent a lot of time in the Orient. The human body can do many things with energy. We don't know exactly what it is. But I do know that in what we were saying during the break about there's other things out there. I'm just going to put this out here. If you have a very negative experience with a Sasquatch, and I have to throw a name out there with it, Mr. Scott Carpenter. I follow him and have dealt with some of the stuff he's dealing with. I truly believe that a demon can, how would you say, project itself in many different forms. And who says that they're not projecting themselves as a Sasquatch?
Could very well be.
Or an alien entity, either one.
That takes it to a whole different level, man.
Absolutely. But I can give you reports to back it up. Yeah. How many reports do you hear of a Sasquatch with red self-ambient eye shine? Quite a few.
Dogman as well.
Absolutely. What is one of the most prominent things of demon if somebody sees a demon?
Red eyes.
The red eyes. Here's another thing, too. I don't believe that Sasquatch they can be as aggressive as that, because anybody can be. I mean, look at some of the atrocious things that we as humans have done and other animals. But we do know it speaks in the Bible that when they cast Legion out, those demons went and possessed a bunch of pigs. Who says that the demon's not influencing or possessing a Sasquatch to do some of this stuff, like the missing 411? But there are other things, being here in Oklahoma, and like you was talking about where you're at too, there's other things out there besides Sasquatch. And if a Sasquatch is a sentient, which I truly believe they are, I believe that they're a cognitive sentient being. You asked me earlier, you wanted to ask me what I thought they was. I think that they're a like a Neanderthalic type person. They could be a Neanderthal that has come down. If you look at the Neanderthal skeletons, they have twice the density of bone structure that we do. What does a dense bone structure mean? More muscle mass. When we do the forensic covering, where they're doing the facial structure of a Neanderthal, I'm not an expert on that, but it looks awful human. We have a tendency to put humanistic characteristics in everything that we do. But I believe, I'm not going to say that they can't manipulate cameras, but I do know one thing. I truly believe that they can sense where they're at, because we've hidden trail cameras in the craziest places you could find and go back and the things be ripped off the tree and thrown about 20, 30 yards or disappear completely. And we know there hasn't been no people in there.
And that's the same thing with us. We put a trail cam up at our gifting site where we were starting to get action. We had it up there for 7.5 days. Didn't capture a thing. No birds, no mice, no deer, no nothing for 7.5 days.
That's interesting.
Don't get it.
Maybe the camera faulted. Did it show any time anomalies on it?
It showed us coming in or leaving, and it showed us coming in.
Wow.
And yet, in the previous, we were getting action. We were getting
Did the action stop after you put the...
We haven't been back there since because the snow started falling. This is where the problem lies.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Some of the stuff we were getting right there.
Is that blood?
That is grease on a kid's basketball. Looks like fingers, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And we know about it. Well, if you think about it, any animal that, like your skin a moose or a deer, they have, grease buildup because their hair, because they don't wash like we do. And that's one of the most common things with Sasquatch is the greasy, for oily skin. That's interesting. I've always wondered, I've had a lot of discussions with people about, they say, oh, we've seen Sasquatch and Dogman in a graveyard at night. Well, I'm like, well, 90% of the time, you can't really say that now, but in the past, 90% of the time, humans don't go out at night, especially to graveyards. So you're going out there to investigate paranormal stuff and you see a Sasquatch. Well, my point is we all believe the Sasquatch are out at night more because they want to avoid us. Well, it's just a law of numbers. If you're out in the middle of a cemetery in the middle of the night, and the Sasquatch is out there in the middle of the night, well, the Sasquatch can be anywhere in the middle of the night. It's just the amount of numbers and time putting out, because we're finding out as people goes out at night, they're having, sightings. But I'm also finding that Sasquatch is out at daytime too. A lot of daytime sightings. There's too many factors to throw in there. That's the reason I'm always searching for people that's had direct encounters of a spiritual nature, aka mind speak, aka infrasound, or direct anomalies like you were saying about seeing the sparkly. I want to hear more about that. And then let's sit down. I have a certain set of questions that I ask because of being a tracker and being outdoors. Well, what was the temperature like? Was there rain at that time? Was there any mist? Because, some folks, where was the thing standing? Was there a lot of grass around? Some folks don't think about that kind of stuff, and that always affects things.
You've seen other anomalies in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Describe what you've seen.
You're talking about the kind of the misty thing. I've truly think I've been, and that's the whole thing. I've never been able to put Sasquatch with it because I've never seen it happen. But I've been walking through the forest and literally see, like in between two trees, it looks like somebody pouring a waterfall. One a real slight waterfall through it. It's just like a little distortion. That a lot of people say that's like a vortex. I've seen, literally sitting in a deer stand, and my father is 70 yards up the hill, and his son's coming up. We got in there in the middle of the night. I heard bipedal footsteps walk up underneath me, look down like this, and I seen a First Nations gentleman wearing a cowboy hat and no shirt and a pair of black pants look at me like this. And as the sun came up and the light came up, he faded out. And come to find out, we was hunting on Cherokee burial ground. Being here in Oklahoma, you see all kinds of crazy stuff like that. I've been in a cemetery and seen a statue of Jesus literally hanging on a cross, and blood start coming down from its side of its face and on like the stigmata and out of his hands. We 9 of us literally seen that my hair's crawling even thinking about it. God, why do we have to go there? Seen all kinds of, I've seen dogs, wolves. They say there's not big wolves here in Oklahoma. I've seen 140, 150 pound wolves walking around down here, whether they're real or they're dog man or I could get into some famous places down here that's got, stories of all kinds. And it's funny, like you were saying, it's like it overlaps. It's like you have spiritual stuff. You also have Sasquatch stuff. You have demonic stuff. You have, we've got the famous, what do they call it? The magnetic road. We got a road down here which I was actually able to disprove, but you park your car, put it in neutral on the road, and it'll start rolling backwards, but yet you're rolling uphill. Well, what it is the elevation grade's rolling uphill, but at that certain spot, we took a transit out there, laser transit, and measured it at that certain spot for 60 yards. It's rolling downhill because of the little arroyo there. We have, Brown Springs, real famous for dogmen and Sasquatch and a whole lot of ghost activity. But We got, the typical spook lights, stuff like that. But you said you wanted to get on, Skinwalker Ranch. When we lived up there, I don't know how many times we was actually working on a ranch, and how many times we would be tracking a missing cow or a calf, and it literally, like these cows and calf, would go to the north ridge. Okay, we lived on the north. Go to the south ridge, which actually overlooked Skinwalker Ranch, and you would walk to the edge, and it's like they walk to the edge of the ridge and just jump off. And you look down below, and there they lay. Like something either drove them off the edge of the ridge, or they just walk off the edge of the ridge, always heading south.
That's crazy.
Living there, people talk about the lights in the sky. That's one of the most common things for the Uinta Basin. The Ute Indians there all talk about that, and I've seen them. I've seen St. Elmo's fire up there on Flaming Gorge. I've got a little story I'll tell you. Well, I'll say it here. Flaming Gorge Dam is where I had my one after-death experience. Very well documented case. Took a truck off the backside of Flaming Gorge Dam, which is 48 miles north of Fort Duchesne, 142 feet to the bottom, in a semi-truck. Was pronounced dead on the scene, brought back to life. And I'll tell you more details on that in a little bit more private, but I spent 3 years in a wheelchair at the Uinta Basin. There's things up there that scare me. I've been all over, but that place is creepy. That whole basin, it's not just Skinwalker Ranch. Everybody talks about Skinwalker Ranch. It's that whole basin.
That's what I've heard. The ranch is just the popularity of it.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. You go just down south of Fort Duchesne, down there where they call it Twin Rivers, I think it is. And that area down there is twice as spooky as Skinwalker Ranch. They have, even to this day, they have Native American folks down there disappear.
What do you think's going on with all of this?
With all of it?
With all of it. What do you think's going on?
See, now you're putting me on the spot.
Yes, I am. That's my job.
I believe there's a battle. I honestly believe that there's a battle in between good and evil. I believe in being Buddhist, but religion's religion, spirituality is spirituality. You look at all the ancient religions. You look at the Aztec, the Sumerians, the Aramaics, Islam even talks about it. Christianity talks about it. We're at the end of times. I don't know if it's a veil in between dimensions opening up and coming across. We've had so many discussions with different people of different philosophies, whether it's, if you want to take it apart, if it's Mother Earth is coming apart herself, which she very well could be because of the power grids messing with her magnetic fields, and the way we're destroying the earth, it seems like we're having an escalation of spiritual anomalies and metaphysical anomalies out of the ordinary. Just not last year, just a few months ago, the Pope comes out and acknowledges UFOs. They literally just put into a bill to release a bunch of papers from the CIA. Just last month?
It's true. But for you, okay, is it a spiritual warfare that is coming to a fruition here, Gary, in your opinion? Or is it the fact that, we're tired of the same old? So we're going out, we are investigating. Ghost television has done wonders for wannabe ghost hunters and wannabe cryptid hunters and UFO hunters. That's where we've seen a major increase. We've seen an increase in the technology that is being used, the cameras that are being used. So could it not be just relative, growth of the community that we are starting to get more because it's not as taboo to tell the stories about what's happening?
I honestly think that it's been happening forever. But as a society, throughout the past, we've had certain, how would we say, communities that has wanted to squelch it. Well, now with the advancement in science, the advancement in knowledge, because we all know that in the last 100 years, I mean, look, since 1950, how technology has grown. But I honestly believe that now, with the massive technology and the massive people, and it's a combination of both, but they are finding out that they can't squelch it no more. These certain communities, whatever they are. I'm not big into conspiracy theories, but if you look at knowledge is power, and I hate to, for lack of better terms, certain communities throughout history have always wanted to keep people dumb and in the dark, like a bunch of mushrooms, and they're finding out that they can't do it. You know, I even get into conversations with people about miracles, you know, spiritual healing and miracles. And when science to me proves that a miracle can happen, it doesn't knock the miracle, make it any worse. To me, when science proves that, well, prime example, the Red Sea, you know, how it parted. I watched there was a documentary put out about how everything had to align just perfectly, a certain wind or tectonic plate shifts or whatever to cause that to happen. It doesn't make it any less miraculous. To me, it makes it more, knowing what all it takes to make that happen. Look at our medical. Look at what we're doing in the medical field. I myself spent 3 years in a wheelchair. They said I'd never be able to walk again, and now I'm tromping around hunting for Bigfoot. I worked literally 14 hours today doing carpentry work. That's a blessing, and that blessing came from the knowledge of man. The Creator gave man that knowledge, and He gave me a determination to be able to manipulate my body enough to get it back in shape. We are in a very important time, I think. Would that be the best way of putting it? We're literally almost to the verge of proving everything spiritually with science.
Makes sense.
I have to be very careful how I say that. And if you take it to the point of the spiritual side of things with Sasquatch, and you talk to, listen to certain entities in the community. I don't want to say their name out of respect because people might take it either way, but they say that even the Sasquatch are coming out and saying the reason we're coming out and seeing more people, letting you see us more. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just saying this is what people has told me, that the reason they're doing that is because it is a coming of the time of enlightenment for all races. How many more UFO sightings are we having?
And how much quicker are we getting to the point of disclosing on that?
Yes. It's like an escalated, like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and faster as we go.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I understand with where you're going, but I think the smarts of it all, that we do have to have a serious look at the ideas. We only got about 2 minutes to go here, that people are more awakened. And the more that they step away from mainstream belief, mainstream
Absolutely.
religion, mainstream living,
Absolutely.
the more they are going to have their eyes open to phenomena that might be out of their control.
Well, you looking in my life as a young man, if you mention Sasquatch, oh, that's demonic. If you mention ghost, oh, that's demonic, unless it was an angel. Or unless it benefited, and I hate to put it that way, unless it benefited the conversation at the time with whoever you're talking. Oh, it's demonic. It's either good or evil. Well, I don't think it is that way. I think there's multiple entities out there that are pulling strings in different directions. For lack of better terms, I love putting it this way. It's almost like a Stargate thing. You have multiple tribes and multiple gods. We are literally proving, we're on the threshold of proving right now that even in mainstream religion, that we're on like the seventh or eighth level of humanity on the earth. We're finding technologies that are way older than what the modern day Christian is talking about. Sumerian technologies, Aramaic technologies. It's so beautiful that knowledge, how would I put that? That knowledge is superseding religion, for the lack of better terms.
Well, we only got 45 seconds left. And, you know, we could get real philosophical with this, but when we come back, I want to get into some of your weird stories because we only have you for another 30 minutes. So I figure we could get in between 1 and 3 good stories that you've had. One question before we go to break. All your time in the forest, you ever seen one of those stairwells that just appears out of nowhere?
Like going into the heavens or something?
Yeah.
No.
I want to see one of those. They say you're never supposed to go up those. You know, you're never supposed to walk up because there's something bad up top. But who knows? Gary, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We have Gary Spikes Jr. for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. I tell you, this is one of those shows that we highly recommend the replay on because there's a lot of info and a lot of detail. You're going to want to check it on out. We're going to continue on with the Monster Talk. All the way from the beautiful state of Oklahoma, Gary Spikes Jr. from P3 Productions. Monsters in Oklahoma. We're going to find them next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, my friend, I'm going to quickly run my dogs out again. I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah.
How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
All right, buddy, I'm back. We've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Man, you talk about a marathon today. Wow.
I'm having fun, man. This is fantastic radio. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
I enjoy talking about this subject matter. It's enthralling for me. Have you ever heard of the Oklahoma octopus?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can Google it, and they got a lot of different deals about it, but we actually, there's no way that an octopus can, run in brackish water.
Mm-hmm.
But, sorry, I'm getting texts from all over the place. We've actually figured it out and proven what it is. I mean, very simply, the simplest thing, but people wouldn't believe it. But when I tell you, if you want me to, we'll cover that in a minute, and you'll be like, "What?" And we're like, "Yep." And then we got like you're talking about crazy stuff here, and most of my stuff, I'm very practical about. When we do investigations, like paranormal investigations, I truly believe people need to get away from technology because, they try to use electricity or electronic instruments to prove an entity, but energy can be manipulated. Like using voice boxes. Well, you can send radio waves from another room or from 100 feet away. I
hear you, dude. Hey, give me a couple seconds here because we got to come back here on the show.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for tuning us in. I'll tell you, if you've missed a lot of this show, you're going to want to hear it again, that is for sure. We welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Katabothran. Katabothran is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Gary Spikes Jr. from Oklahoma's P3 Productions. He's a podcaster, researcher. This guy is a plethora of knowledge when it comes to the cryptid world and the paranormal world. Gary, welcome back.
Howdy you once again. You can tell I'm getting tired. What time is it up there?
Well, it's late. Let's just say it's late.
How do you do this every night?
I'm stupid.
Love what you do.
I love what you do. You know what? I'm a night owl. So I could either be doing this or sitting in front of my television watching reruns of shows that I like and shows that I want to like and shows that I dislike. So I choose this because it's a lot more fun.
It is, and it's enlightening too. I mean, I've made chat's blowing up about that Oklahoma octopus.
Well, let's talk about the Oklahoma octopus. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's even they did a episode on Monster Quest of it, but they literally say that here in Oklahoma they found octopus in the lakes. Well, we got three factors here. There is not a single non-man-made lake of any substantial size on any substantial river in Oklahoma. All of the substantial lakes are all man-made, and they're all less than 75, 80 years old. So if we was to get octopus here, they would either have to come up a river, which can't happen because of the brackish water, or they'd had to been released here. But we've for years and years, even some of the First Nations going back, hundreds of years, talk about an octopus that pulls people under, and then when they pull them out, they've got multiple bites all over them, or when they describe it as like an octopus is something wrapping around them in multiple genuines and pulling them under. I've got a very simple explanation for it. Breeding balls of water moccasin snakes.
Interesting.
It happens. I was noodling at the age of about 15, and my grandfather was on the bank, and I had my head up underneath a brush pile, and he says, "Do not move." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Do not move," in a very stern voice. And he said, "Okay, now turn your head slowly." And as I turned my head slowly, we was on the South Canadian River, just north of my hometown. And as I turned, I literally seen about 40 water moccasin snakes coiled up in a ball and just a mass in the water drifting down the stream. If you got caught up in the middle of that, you're going to come out with about 40 or 50 bites, and they're coiling around you. If everybody describes an octopus, when they wrap around you, they have those suction cups, and it bites at you. So once again, and then if you Google it, I mean, there's a whole big slew of it, of the Oklahoma octopus, and they even talk about venom. It's so funny how that just the practical easiest, and that's the approach that we try to use here is we want to use the simplest and the easiest thing, or the simplest thing and then start getting more, how would we say, constructive about how we encrypt or decrypt something. I have seen that snake balls probably 20 times since then, because I pay attention to it. And you can Google it online. Anybody can Google it and just type in a water moccasin snake ball, and it'll show them. And man, it does. If it was in the water and it hit you, it would feel like an octopus.
See, when it comes to Ogopogo, which is about 4 hours south of me in Lake Okanagan.
Yep. Yes.
I tend to believe that creature is a large sturgeon.
A white sturgeon, of course, yes.
And the white sturgeon in the Columbia River, which starts at Lake Okanagan and then ends up separating the state of Oregon from Washington, I totally believe that's what we're dealing with.
Oh yeah, it's funny you say that, because just Sunday night in I handle multiple shows. We ended up interviewing Mr. Just a second, I want to pronounce his name correctly. I got so many messages. Scott Martis. Do you know of him?
No, I haven't heard of him.
He specializes in lake monsters throughout the world, but mainly he was on the Monster Quest of Champaign. He spent many years researching Ogopogo, Champaign, all over. We just interviewed him Sunday night. Great show, but he was talking about that Ogopogo and mentioned that white sturgeon thing. See, here in Oklahoma, we have catfish that are 80 pounds. We noodle them. We grab them with our hands, and that's
right.
That 80 pounds is not a real big, that's a big fish, but we get them 80 pounds all the time.
Well, the sturgeon in the Fraser River, where I grew up near, right along the banks, that the sturgeon in there, the white sturgeon in there, can get up to 20 feet
Oh yeah, 17 to 20. Yeah,
You know, and I mean, this is the size of a great white shark.
absolutely.
And it could get up to, 2,000 pounds. So, I mean, you put something like that in the water, or a couple of them, and the way their bodies are. I don't know if you've ever caught a sturgeon. I have.
Oh yeah, if they don't raise their head, they almost look like an alligator. I mean, a crocodile. The way they got the nodules on the back. Yeah.
Yes, they're ancient fish.
Oh yeah,
and they live for anywhere from 100 to 150 years old, and they don't stop growing. So, I mean, the issue with that is, I think there are logical explanations for a lot of this. But when you hear people talk about puckwudgies or gnomes or
Yes.
little trolls or little nymphs running around the forest trails, I mean, how do we account for those types of sightings that people are having?
That's a very interesting subject matter because I have had one experience with what you would call down here, we call them a puckwudgie or a little person. We was doing actually a tracking seminar with dogs with my dog, and I had two bloodhounds on the trail. They alighted on something. And when I was able, I keep them on a 14-foot tether, so they'll move forward, on the trail, and I'll move forward with them. So I'm tracking behind them. I know each one of the dogs' tracks, and literally in between the tracks was a 3-inch bear, looked like a bear human print with like an inch claw on them. My first thought was a raccoon track, but you ain't gonna get no raccoons down here with a 3-inch track. And then the next thing would be a bear, because a bear can sometimes their foot will lay up like a human. But I don't know of any, unless it was a baby, a very young baby that would have a 3-inch track. That was just the weirdest thing I ever seen in my life. And the dogs was acting real strange that day. That was, to me, physical evidence of something anomalous here. But they seem to be more frequented in your area, Montana and on farther north up in the mountains. I'm gonna shoot you a question. What's your thoughts on the, how would we say, the real big Sasquatch or the mountain giants? Because I know they're prevalent in British Columbia. They say they are in Montana, all the way up. Have you ran across anything like that up there? I'm talking 24 to 27-inch tracks, 9/10
I have heard of them in northern British Columbia, like getting close to the Alaska and Yukon borders. That's where I have heard that they are. They kind of go into this growth spurt, from what I'm hearing, once you get up there, because there's something weird about the minute you get, past the halfway point of British Columbia, and I'm about 5 hours south of the halfway point, if you were to drive. And that halfway point it just seems like everything gets bigger as you move up. The bears get bigger. The moose get bigger. The deer get bigger. The rams get bigger. The Dall sheep get bigger. Everything just seems to grow and grow and grow. So the reports that I have heard from northern BC is, you find a 9-10 footer, that's a small one.
Oh, wow. And that would make sense because in that temperament climate, you would need the mass and the size to stay warm.
Yeah.
And to cover the terrains, because that's a lot more wide open up there, isn't it, than...
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, the further north you go, I mean, you have to realize, like, with Canada, 90% of our population is within 100 miles of the U.S. border.
Yeah.
So the further you go up, sure, there's bigger, there's some big cities. Okay. Now, when I say big cities in Canada, we're talking, 100,000. You go over to Edmonton, Alberta, you're looking at about 1 million. You go north to Fort McMurray in Alberta, you're looking at about 150,000 that are all in the oil industry, where there's a lot of sightings and UFOs around there. You go through this. And so, but the population is all centered into one area. It's very rare. I mean, there are parts of British Columbia, for instance, that have never seen humans. to this day. To this day. They've never seen a human track. Right? So it's easier for these creatures, whatever it may be, to hide there. And that's kind of the cool thing. So do they grow? I've heard of the 12, 15 footers. I heard that from a First Nations man up north. I said, yeah, they're getting up there in size. And you have to, you want to believe it. It makes sense considering, a moose in my area, a big moose in my area is about 1,200 pounds.
Yeah.
You go up to get one of those Alaskan moose way up high, and you're looking at a 2,000-pound bull.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
10 feet tall, yeah.
That's a big difference.
I've been to Canada twice, Manitoba. My best friend lived there for, most of his life. But I've got me once they open them borders up, like you was talking about earlier, I've got me a bucket list item that if I ever can, I'm going to go visit. And this big boy is going to take me, my butt, and I to the Nahanni Valley.
Yeah, everybody wants to go there.
Oh, I know, and it's so hard to get there. But it is possible now. I mean, they're airlifting people in. But, yeah, that's a bucket list thing. I think the average cost on it now is like $6,000.
So for people who don't know what the Nahanni Valley is, there's a legend there that goes back almost 100 years of a bunch of people who were killed there strangely, and their heads were ripped off their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scary part. And there's been nobody ever claimed. Like, we're talking ripped. We're not talking cut off with a knife. We're talking ripped off. Like somebody, and it's scary. It's scary in there.
Absolutely. And it's not even so much that for me, it is one of the last true, to me, that would be almost like getting into the Amazon River Basin. It's one of the last true extreme survival trips, for lack of better terms. I've always wanted to go there. But, we had a case similar to that down here in Oklahoma, actually just south of me, down in a pretty famous case in Brown Springs. And you was talking about, you wanted to ask me about some of the craziest things I seen. I was actually able to get a little bit of verification on this because the case is still open. But the Brown Springs is right on the border of Oklahoma and Texas. And they found a car with a young lady's body strung across the hood. And she was eviscerated and had been sexually assaulted. And the young man, the way I'm understanding it, the young man had his head turned around backwards on his body.
Oh, wow.
And slung aside. And the way the story goes that I had heard all my life is that they was down there doing the what young couples do. And the only thing we could figure is maybe a young Sasquatch or a Sasquatch came up and wanted to do it too. And slung the guy aside and then did what he did to her. And the way that we verified it is I actually had trained some dogs for Carter County, which is in that county, sheriff's department, and was able to talk to one of the officers there. And he did verify that in that time frame, they did find the two bodies. And he couldn't say no more because it was a closed case. It was quite an interesting for me. We actually are planning a little expedition down there. It's literally like 40 miles from my farm, but that's one of the crazier things here in Oklahoma that we have had happen. And who could turn somebody's head around backwards on the body? No, I don't think a human's going to do that.
When you look at the overall picture, you've been a paranormal investigator, which you enjoy. Cryptid investigator, you've looked into, all sorts of weird cultural stuff in your area. Do you think it's all tied together?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, you might have some anomalies here and there that are different, but yeah, I honestly believe that they're, like we was talking about earlier, I believe that there's a link in between all this. I mean, you can't be in the, my way of life with Buddhism not knowing that there is a link to all this, whether it be that battle of good or evil, or, back and forth of spiritualism and spiritual anomalies. And, you know, that's something that you had alluded to earlier. It's kind of a change of subject, but it's not. You know, you said that you had an alien encounter. I've never, per se, I've seen UFOs, but I've never had an alien encounter that I know of. We always chalked them up, you know, like things looking of that description, looking into windows as a kid, we always chalked them up as demonic. Well, as I got older, maybe the demonic stuff is alien.
Could be. We don't
know. Or maybe we don't know. Is alien from another planet, or is it from another dimension? Is a demon just a different rendition of an alien? A spiritual rendition of an alien? Just like, you know, you was talking about Skinwalker Ranch about, you know, as soon as you said the shimmering, you know, like you said, like the pixelated.
Yes.
Was that, I'm curious because, you know, that's a real common thing at Skinwalker Ranch of a pixelated entity, not an area, but literally a physical pixelated, almost like the Predator running around. Is that what you...
The funny part about it was there were 4 of us there. Only 2 of us saw the pixelation. The other 2 couldn't.
Really?
Yes.
Maybe angle of
we were standing all side by side by side.
Wow. So it's just an interpretation of your eyes, or maybe your spiritual.
Don't know.
That's interesting.
Don't know. You know, but Bruce Maccabee, famous scientist, one of the aviary, his wife had an encounter with one of these predator type beings while she was hunting in a deer stand on their property.
Yeah, they're at Skinwalker.
No, not at Skinwalker.
Oh, okay.
This was on their property. I think they're up in Minnesota or someplace like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's actually at the end of David Paulides' Missing 411 Hunters.
Oh, that's the one where, okay, yeah, where it actually, she's seen it coming across the, yeah, I remember that. Well, I was trying to think the one in Skinwalker was, nobody was hunting. I think they just seen it going across the creek. But, you know, and I've heard people say that, you know, Bigfoot cloaking can do that. But once again, I've never seen that or even evidence of it with Bigfoot. I think there might be other things out there besides Bigfoot that we are mixing in, but we don't know. But I do know. I do think it's all connected. I think, like you said, I totally agree that it's all connected. We just got to be able to put the facts and put it in order and then figure out a response to it. And if it is all connected, where do we come in this case?
Sorry, Bruce Maccabee, according to Rich. Thank you, Rich, in the chat room. Is in Ohio.
Ohio.
I apologize. But I should have said Ohio because everything screwed up happens in Ohio.
You ain't joking, man.
That's the truth.
I used to hate, and I say this with compassion, I used to hate doing tracking and survival seminars in Ohio because there's so many things going on out there. I don't even want to get into half of it. It's like things that I tell people Ohio's like South Texas. Everything wants to kill you.
Isn't that right? Isn't that right? My friend, we've got 2 minutes left with you. Gary, this is a show that has flown on by, and we're definitely going to have to do this again. We are definitely going to have to do this again. But do me a favor, tell everybody where they can find your information, your podcasts, and your research.
Okay. We're just a small deal. We're on YouTube under P3 Productions. You can also find us on Facebook. Folks, this sounds silly, but it's the easiest way to find it. Just go on search on Facebook and type in Graveyard Cowboy. And there's a funny story behind that, but I don't want to get into that. But that's the easiest way to find us on Facebook. I mean, I don't put a lot of stuff out. I'm not about, really, it's more of a personal thing for me. Be P3 Productions on YouTube, and you can Graveyard Cowboy on Facebook, and email would be TRIPLES bear@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. I really do appreciate getting to know you here. And the one thing that I like about you, Gary, and I have no problem saying this, you could tell just in the way you speak, you're very down to earth on this. You know, you're not trying to form someone's thoughts. You're not trying to make them think the way you are, say your research is the be-all and end-all. I think you're doing it the right way, man, and there's not a lot of people that we could say that in these communities, and congratulations for being that guy. You're that guy, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
I honestly, my whole purpose in this, and I'll be honest with you, is that for enlightenment. And for all of us and I hate to say it this way, but us as a species to be able to walk with these others, whatever they are, whether, you know, of the good side. I'm sure there's probably some evil ones out there, but I'm putting that open out there for anybody out there. Please contact me. I am seriously wanting to get with folks on the Sasquatch side of things and do more of the spiritual side of it, because I am so physical and so practical, and I think I might be missing something somewhere.
Well, let's try and find that together. My friend, you hold on. We're going to take this to break here on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Big thanks to Gary Spikes Jr., can't read my own writing, for being on the show. We'll be back. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, my friend, what is your YouTube again?
P3 Productions.
I just have a bunch of people here who want to subscribe.
Yeah, somebody put it in the link. Let's see. Yeah, Corrance died.
Good old Corrance, the booking guy.
Yeah. And I've got the real in-depth 20s, that sighting. I've got a video of it actually sitting down on our pond. You know, you was talking about doing the gifting. We could talk for hours on this, but my father is actually starting a gifting program down there in our research area and getting some interesting little like feathers and stuff like that brought back in sticks, bent kind of funky, and there's nobody else down there.
Well, I'll show you another picture. Remember I showed you that basketball picture?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when we first went up there, we were chased out of that area in 2018. And last year we finally decided to do something because it was nagging me. And I was nagging my friends. We got to do something about this. So I brought up some toys. And one of the toys that we have, I put, where is it here? You can see in that picture right there. See that that purplish blue ball in the tree? Okay, so that is, you know, when you go to the dollar store and it's got a bunch of gumballs in there and you pop it off.
Yeah, the plastic.
Yeah. So it looks like a giant sucker, right?
Yeah.
So we put that there, and a friend of mine put an old 1960s Canadian nickel on a dead tree that was rotted out on the ground. His daughter put a nickel on there. And so we go back the week later, her nickel is gone. We go back a week later, and now here's the weird part. My son, who is with me, says, "Hey, Daddy, what's that coin doing on the purple ball?"
They set it down on top of. Wow.
Well, here's the difference. That one there, okay, is a 2019 nickel.
Uh-huh.
Right? So the original nickel is gone. We now have a 2019 nickel 2 weeks later. Could it be possible that it was a human? Sure. Sure, it could. But, you know, here's the thing with humans, you know, and Science Bob really really pointed this out. I don't know if you guys will see that on the YouTube side very well. But Science Bob pointed this out. You know, when we as humans put things up somewhere, okay, what we're trying to do is we are trying to we put things in safety areas, okay? We don't put things that are going to fall. Like that nickel here, okay? A heavy wind, a heavy snowstorm, heavy rain, it's going to knock that nickel off.
Yeah.
Human nature would know that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now,
and see, once again, there's another phenomenon here. I know that we're seeing a lot of Sasquatch doing this type of stuff, but we're also seeing that on the supernatural side.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part about it is where we put our gifting site is right by, what I didn't tell you was it's right by a crash site, Canada's largest unsolved murder, when an airplane blew up in 1965. And part of the wreckage is still in that forest, right where we were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, my friend, I do have to run because I have to get ready for the news here. But thank you so much for coming on. We're going to do this again, man. And
Sure.
if you ever want to talk Bigfoot on your show, I'd love to make time for you, man.
I've actually got a slew of shows we'd love to have you on.
Well, let's do it, man. You know,
thank you so much. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Send me a request, my friend.
Where's the old Gary Spikes Jr.?
I'm a bugging old Duke.
Yeah, we are friends on Facebook.
Are we?
Yeah. I think that just happened.
Okay, yeah. I'm a bugging old Duke in the chat over here.
Good.
That's another great guy.
Yeah. He's got a great voice.
Oh God, yeah, he does.
Yeah,
and
he's got one of them sexy voices.
Oh yeah, like him and old Vic Cundiff.
Yeah, I got to run here, buddy. You take care.
We'll
Okay.
Talk to you later, my friend.
Bye. Gary Spikes Jr., everyone. How awesome was that? Hey, big thank you to Vinster, Betty Spaghetti, Lynn Sows, Grendel, Colin, and Cat Chaser for the awesome super chats tonight. Thank you so much. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Instagram @SpacedOutRadioShow. Speaking of the news, let's do this thing, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the skeptical. Remember about a week ago we were telling you this story about Cleveland Browns starting quarterback Baker Mayfield reporting on Twitter that he and his wife Emily had seen a UFO. Well, Colin Cowherd, famed football radio show host, literally tore Mayfield up, saying, you shouldn't be talking UFOs. You're a big man on campus when it comes to the football world. Don't be talking that. Well, maybe Baker Mayfield actually did see a UFO, but this is where it gets interesting, because Cowherd, who does not believe in UFOs, decided that he was going to get Neil deGrasse Tyson on his show to talk about UFOs. And according to NDT, he says, okay, so what he should do is go look at what meteors look like, and most of them look like simple shooting stars, Tyson said, but the occasional bigger one is called a bolide. We have special words for them, and they flash through the sky. It takes just half a second. It flashes through the sky at the end Sometimes they explode. Now, Tyson recently made a little bit of headlines in the UFO world, and if you go to spacedoutradio.com or uapresearch.com, you can read my blog on it, where basically he's in denial that there is no UFO evidence out there. So Cowherd goes and gets someone who's going to support his angle of this whole football stuff. Let the guy alone. He saw a UFO. Most people can tell a meteor from something strange. We're not that stupid, Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're not that stupid. You know, the one thing we always say is science is about proving or disproving theory. It's not about proving or disproving opinion. And for a person of Neil deGrasse Tyson's popularity, stature in the scientific community, especially on mainstream with his television shows and his appearances, he's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant astrophysicist. But to deny the evidence is unconscionable. Science is not opinion. It is about proving or disproving theory. Interesting story here in the NHL. The Vegas Golden Knights were forced to scramble and find a new hotel when the one they were staying in for their game against the San Jose Sharks this past weekend suddenly closed. This happened as a result of the Fairmont Hotel filing for bankruptcy. The players were notified through their director of team services, Rick Bronstein, who told the players to pack their bags and bring their belongings when the team left for the game. The team had already eaten a pregame meal and taken an afternoon nap prior to this announcement. It was just a surreal experience, said Coach Peter DeBoer. Hopefully this is just the end of the COVID year, but it was almost the topping on top of the cake for what the past year has been. For everybody in the world, just another thing thrown at you, another thing to deal with. Not that I'm putting in the same breath as dealing with COVID, but it was just one of those things that we've got thrown at us. We will deal with it. The Golden Knights, by the way, ended up beating the Sharks 5-4 in overtime, and defenseman Nick Holden says, I think it was pretty seamless. Bronstein did a great job of letting everybody get their preparation, pregame nap, and all that stuff in. We just had to pack our bags like we were going to leave. Behind the scenes, everything was taken care of so we could just focus on the game last night and today. I think that's kind of funny. NHL team gets thrown out of their own hotel. Could you imagine? Wow. How'd you like to be this kid? Caleb Anderson is continuing his educational journey and leaving his mark along the way. He is just 12 years old, and he's impressed folks around the nation when he started his sophomore year at Chattahoochee Technical College to earn his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. But now Caleb, because he hasn't accomplished that much at 12 years old, has something else to be proud of. He was recently accepted to his dream school, the Georgia Institute of Technology. The college announced this exciting news in a post on Twitter, explaining that Anderson would attend the school in the fall and continue studying aerospace engineering. When I was 12 years old, it was a big debate. Van Halen, 1984, versus Def Leppard's Pyromania. This kid's going to be an aeronautical engineer before many finish high school in his age. Caleb learned sign language when he was just 9 months old, kept improving after that. He started reading a few months later, then was able to solve math problems around his second birthday. He was just 3 years old when he qualified for Mensa, a nonprofit organization for people who score in the 98th percentile or higher in standardized intelligence tests. It's essentially a club for exceptionally smart people, with members including actress Gina Davis. Though his knowledge is well beyond his 7th grade classmates, Caleb recently insisted that he isn't that smart. Number one, there are a lot of people out there who are smarter than me, he explained. And there are a lot of people out there who work harder than me, so compared to them, I'm definitely not smart. And the kid's grounded too. Wow. Great job by his parents. He always has the hunger and the thirst for knowledge, Caleb's dad, Kobe Anderson, says. His parents, of course, knew that their child was one of a kind, especially when they talked to other parents. As we started to interact with other parents and had other children, then we started to realize how exceptional this experience was because we had no other frame of reference. His mom says, Hey, Mom. Or he'll go to his mom, Claire. Hey, Mom, I'm bored. This is not challenging. It's really not helping me grow in my learning, and I'm thinking I'm ready for college. My goodness. Yeah, by the way, in the second year at Chattahoochee Technical College, Caleb said he's been taking courses in physics, chemistry, and world and American literature. He has far surpassed me in math, so I can't help him anymore, says his dad. As he looks ahead to his future at Georgia Tech, Caleb says he hopes his educational experiences will land him an internship with Tesla and SpaceX founder Elon Musk. This kid is going places. What a brilliant young man. Brilliant young man. Astronomers, speaking of space, have discovered the most distant radio signals yet, which voyaged more than 13 billion light years across the universe before they were captured by multiple observatories here on Earth. The signals come from a tremendously powerful quasar, a special type of galactic core that radiates enormous amounts of light and energy. Scientists observed this particular quasar, known as P172 plus 18, as it was when the universe was only about 780 million years old, or about 5% its current age. A team co-led by Eduardo Banados, a staff astronomer at the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy in Germany, and a research fellow as well, basically said that they've spent years looking for extremely rare radio signals, hoping to confirm that they are indeed the most distant ever measured. Finally, on the night of January 12, 2019, the researchers captured clear observations of the flaring flung quasar using a spectrograph on the Magellan Bod telescope in Las Campanas Observatory in Chile. It was an exciting night. We were extremely happy. The minutes after we got the data from the telescope, we knew we had made an important discovery, the first human beings recognizing this object as a quasar and the most distant source of strong radio emissions so far. It's aliens. Always aliens. Now, this is freaky. A man in Mexico literally fell out of the hot air balloon basket, and he was dangling above the crowds as people started to gather to look in horror. Yeah, the footage, which can be seen on YouTube, shows a man hanging from the edge of a hot air balloon as it drifts up into the sky. Onlookers could be heard screaming as the group tugged ropes on the ground in a bid to try and pull the balloon back down. However, as he edged closer to the safe earth below, the man lost his grip and plunged several meters. Mercifully, he was able to break his fall by grabbing onto a rope before at last being lowered back to the ground. Authorities are now investigating the hot air balloon company, as well as similar businesses in the area, to make sure they have the necessary permits and security measures. A few years back, a hot air balloon in Australia had to make an emergency landing after it caught fire. There were 15 passengers and a pilot on board the balloon, which took off from the Wandon Park before grounding around 45 minutes later with the basket destroyed by the flames. One passenger, a 27-year-old woman, was taken to hospital suffering minor injuries as a precaution, but there were no other injuries. The National Commercial Ballooning Industry issued a statement that read, "The pilot of one of the Australia's most experienced commercial hot air balloon pilots, with approximately 5,500 in command, hours that is, flew the aircraft under challenging circumstances, managed to land the balloon safely, then evacuated the passengers and himself." This is dangerous. I mean, but the guy holding on for dear life, did he fall out, or did he just decide, hey, I want on there, and held on as it started to raise? I don't know. Really don't know. Either way, he's lucky he's not dead. Lucky he's not dead at all. Okay, here's a gross one. Did you know there are some slugs that can shed their body and their head will crawl around until it finds a new body? Yeah, new research published in Current Biology describes this incredible feat of autonomy or self-amputation. The discovery was made in Yoichi Yusa's lab at Nara Women's University in Japan, which cultures sea slugs from eggs to adulthood across generations to better understand the slimy creatures. One of the biologists at the university and lead author on the recent paper, Sayaka Mito, studied and stumbled upon the slug's well-intentioned self-dismemberment when she came across an individual in the lab whose head was no longer connected to its frilled pickle-colored body. Instead, the head was still moving. We had not thought they would perform such an unusual autonomy. No kidding. This finding was completely a serendipity. Once a team found one severed individual, they went around investigating why and precisely how the breakage occurred. The observations included attempts to induce a self-beheading by imitating the sort of cursory nips a marine predator would take on the slug in the wild. Perhaps they guessed the slug parting with its body was similar to a fighter jet using an ejector seat. Yes, the researchers also tied a nylon cord around where the slug's head met the body, where it seemed the slug was predisposed to making corporeal cranial split. They did this lightly enough, more akin to a too-tight necktie than an asphyxiating agent. But the slugs don't have the respiratory systems as vertebrae as we do, so no big deal. Yeah, this continued on for days until they finally figured it out. Yep. Apparently the slugs just do it naturally. They want to be able to try and find a bigger body in order to grow. So they shed the old one. This thing's gross. I mean, slugs are bad enough. But this thing's just gross. Yeah, much more research is apparently needed. How these little slugs eke out existence without the help of the majority of their corporeal form. The new observations suggest there are a lot more questions to ask of these animals. Of course there is. Now this is a brawl for it all. Black bear versus skunk. You can find this video on YouTube as well. Skunks are unlikely badasses of the animal kingdom. Small, waddling, and sort of cute. They would seem vulnerable if it wasn't for the weapon they keep in their loaded anal glands. Yes, they have butt spray. As it is, they go wherever they want, brazenly poking their noses into every hole. Coyotes, foxes, bobcats, mountain lions, and bears can all eat skunks, but they usually avoid them. Still, you have to be impressed with the pluck of your average skunk. And a video that was shown in Windsor, Colorado, of a young bear deciding to take on a skunk, but learned the hard way. Yeah, a couple of suplexes, a pile driver, and an anal gland spray finally got the black bear away. Yeah, the bear in the video is in a grass field, eating, frolicking, just doing his black bear thing. But then, cue the music, sees a skunk, runs over to inspect the critter. You get a feeling that this might be the bear's first skunk experience. You also get the feeling that it's not the skunk's first bear experience. But there they are. Mano a mano. The standoff is on. Bear confronts skunk at close range, but rather than fleeing, the skunk says, yeah, you want to go? Let's go. Let's drop the gloves right here and take it on. Yep, the skunk takes a few steps towards the bear, rocks back and forth, raises its tail. Bear doesn't know what the heck is going on. Said, what's this little skunk doing here? What are you doing? What do you think you're going to do, little skunk? I got these big claws, big teeth. What are you going to do? Oh, guess what happened? Yes, the skunk all of a sudden did one of its quickly butt turns, twitched away this way, twitched away that way, sprayed the bear in the face. Bear goes running. TKO. Skunk wins. Skunk wins. The skunk wins. That's the way it goes in nature. That's the way it goes. It's a good video. Go watch it. You might want to check it out. Continuing on. We got one final story here for you. A lawn care company is seeking an outdoor gaming enthusiast to make about $1,000 playing cornhole, a game involved tossing small bean bags of corn into holes in a board. My True Green Lawn, an online retailer, Lawn Care, says it's seeking someone to play cornhole on 5 separate days and complete a worksheet from the experience. Do we need more reasons to get outside? Looking for fun ways while socially distancing? Want something to do that's good for all ages? If you are that person, they're going to pay you $1,000 to play cornhole. The posting states the candidates will need to have access to their own cornhole equipment, boards with holes, and small canvas bags of corn kernels for throwing. We are looking for someone who is willing to play cornhole and tell us about how you are using it to stay connected while staying safe. Applicants are being accepted on the company's website through April 2nd. Cornhole. Skunks. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What type of paranormal, cryptid, UFO adventure would you like to go on? Music and truth. One where technology secrets are revealed that allow us to move into the future, where cancer is a thing of the past, limitless energy is on the horizon, and hoverboards and flying cars are finally here. And none of that feels like a big deal. An adventure to the future. Cherry Pepsi Mike. One where the UFO pilots disclose clean, limitless energy that ends pollution, poverty, and war. Davey, me and my 6-year-old son Eddie want to go on a Sasquatch exhibition with Dave Scott. Eddie has been busy practicing his Sasquatch calls. Davey, I want to do that with you and your boy. Want to do that. Let's do that. Mickle, I would love to search the gifting place, which I think is the Roswell crash sites. 13 Ballads, a trip to Bamberg Castle, Lindisfarne, Eyemouth Cemetery, and Spindlestone Hughes. Why? It's all associated with Bram Stoker's Lair of the White Worm. Twin Rose. I'd like to see a dogman like Wiley, Dave Fritz did in western Oklahoma. He was calling coyotes and called in a dogman. Oh, there's nothing freaky about that. Jack, I'd like to have an out-of-body experience. Jim, I want to have a Bigfoot sighting. Just one. Kate, with her red toque on, she wants to go into the forest, see the fairies of the woods, and watch them disappear. Stephen, I want Maria Orsic to come take me away from all of this. James, I'd like to have a CE5 expedition. CE5, that's where you make contact with aliens on the ground. Much like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, except step it up a couple of woo notches. Nikki, to have a sit-down, face-to-face conversation with the matriarch Sasquatch of Mount Baker in Washington State, then go through a portal with her and return back from that portal. Tim, I'd love to have a Bigfoot sighting so I can confirm for me that they are real. Lori gets the final word on this tonight. She says, a buzz around the galaxy with some friendly extraterrestrials, LOL, because the rest of the oddball world is in my twilight zone of life with the cryptids run and in and out of here. That is the thought of the Dave for everybody on Facebook and Twitter. My personal one, what do I want? I want to go on a flight. That's it. I make it nice and simple. I just want to go on a flight. Consciously. Have some aliens land a ship in my backyard and say, hey, Dave, let's go. And I'll be like, no, guys, I got to get the show over with. You can come on the air if you want. And they're going to be like, look, you got to come on this flight or we're leaving right now. I would have to abandon the show. I really would. I would have to abandon the show in order to grab that flight, but it would be one hell of a story, wouldn't it? Thank you to everybody on the Thought of the Dave. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire, and a great show tonight. You'll want to check it out on the archives if you missed it. Gary Spikes Jr. talking monsters in Oklahoma. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone hanging out in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Spreaker, Revolution Radio, Facebook, Space Travelers Club, and all the snarkers and snarkettes playing along on Twitter at hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.